Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be doing a reaction analysis slash review type of thing for this interview. Is kind of a weird way to put it because it seems to be, from the clips that I've seen, much more of a confrontation. So, I'm going to watch that. I'm going to analyze it. We're going to see who makes good points and who doesn't. Analyze it logically in a Spurg type fashion. And so, yeah, I'm excited for this because I actually was longing for this conversation for a long time. It's it was an object of my interest to see an interview between Candace Owens and Mr. Fuentes himself. So I'm glad that it's here, but apparently it does not arise to the expectations that most people like me had when we were thinking about, an interview between Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens. Even though that might be a good thing because if it's confrontational, it's probably going to be more funny and entertaining if it's confrontational, other than rather than both of them just sitting there and saying, "Yeah, we both hate Jews. Let's go." That'll make for a much more boring conversation. So in a way, I'm glad that it's like this. But without further ado, let's go.
Nick, welcome to the Candace Show.
Great to be with you.
You talk a lot of
I do.
You absolutely
right
talk a lot.
Wow. Right away. Just
about me included.
Okay.
So I wanted
Yep.
to invite you onto the podcast because a lot of your videos have been going viral. Obviously, it will not surprise you to learn that according to the media, you might be the most evil person in the world.
They say that about me, yes. That's my reputation.
Definitely anti-Semitic, racist,
right.
Misogynist. There have been real fears of people speaking about your Groyper movement. So I did something before this interview is I went back into my phone and wrote Nick Fuentes. I wanted to try to remember the first time that I actually heard your name. And it was in 2019, a text message that somebody had shared with me that Ashley St. Clair had been kind of fired from Turning Point USA. And this person was speaking about Ashley St. Clair and had mentioned that she got in trouble a while back or whenever it happened because she took a photo with you and that you were this big anti-Semite. And then later that year, I had a conversation about the Groypers. It was something that I had never seen before, who were showing up on college campuses and asking questions about conservatism to various speakers, whether it was Rob Smith, Dave Rubin, and asking, hey, if we're conservatives, why are we promoting gay people?
Right.
You're the person that is the face of that movement. So
yes.
Can you just tell me, I guess, a little bit about Nick Fuentes before the Groyper movement?
Sure. Well, yeah, that was my big claim to fame. That was kind of when I came on the map in 2019. But before that, I was at RSBN, Right Side Broadcasting Network. I was a freshman in college. I was 18 years old. I was at Boston University, and I was a big pro-Trump guy. And I was very into politics, extremely political. But like a lot of people, I was pretty mainstream. I was very pro-Israel, libertarian, big PragerU viewer, Ben Shapiro fan, all that kind of stuff. But of course, in 2016, everything changed. You had the rise of the alternative right. And so it's guys like Jordan Peterson and Stefan Molyneux and Richard Spencer and Jared Taylor. And of course, Trump being the king of them all. So in 2016, everything changed. I became very racialist, very pro-white, very critical of Israel, very aware of the Jewish phenomenon that's happening in the country. And so I went to the college campus. I was freshman, 18, and I did a big debate with the student body president at the school. And it was kind of weird how it came together. I was pretty vocal on Twitter, didn't have a big following, maybe 200 followers, but I was wearing a MAGA hat everywhere I went. Cafeteria, to class, down the street. And I became known on the campus as that guy wearing the MAGA hat. And I would go on Twitter and I'd talk about my experience. People are picking on me. People are saying they were going to beat me up. People are threatening me, stuff like that. And I said, I was defiant. I was very pro-Trump in spite of all that. And so I got a lot of flack from the liberals on the campus, the Democrats, and one of these groups, Young Americans for Liberty, they came in and contacted me and said, would you want to set up a debate on the campus with one of your detractors, one of the people that's threatening you, trying to fight you? And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. I had been a broadcaster in high school. So I said, yeah, let's set something up. And so they put out like an open casting call. They contacted a bunch of the people that had been talking trash about me. And they said they'd like to set up this debate. And they found the student body president. He was like a senior, and he was like some Democrat socialist or something. And I didn't even know the guy. But they set up this live event, and like 300 students came to it. It was like a big deal. And actually, someone Cassie Dillon, who's now known as Cassie Akiva. At that time, she was a fellow at Daily Wire. She was like, I guess she was working there temporarily. They had taken her to Israel. She had been there a few times, and she was studying at Mount Holyoke in Western Massachusetts. And she was involved with some of the campus groups, so she went to the event. And she live streamed it on Periscope at that time. And I didn't even know her. I had heard about her. I had seen her on Twitter. And when the debate finished, she came up to me and she said, oh my gosh, I just streamed that. You had 30,000 people watching. She goes, Ben Shapiro watched it. Milo Yiannopoulos watched it. She said, and you've got a bunch of different job offers. And we do a little post-game interview. She's asking me questions. And the last question she asked me, which is like the big setup for my whole life, she said, I just got back from Israel. She said, would you ever take a trip to Israel? Because I think you'd love it and so on. And, I sort of knew what was happening with Israel, but not 100%. And I said,
okay, one thing that I've noticed from listening to Nick for years, I watched a lot of his debates, I've watched a lot of his discussions, I watched a lot of his show. He tends to embellish and change stories in a little bit of a way. Okay, he describes things, whether be it beliefs, positions, or events that occurred in a very embellished and kind of descriptively amorphous way. Things change, it's little slight details that can change, but in accordance to his description, they change. But it can make a significant difference. So I don't know how much I buy whether like this Cassie Dillon person. I know who Cassie Dillon is, I know who Cassie Akiva is, but I'm not exactly sure as to whether it is entirely believable that Cassie Dillon was like, hey, let me ask you these 7 questions, and the last of it is going to be about Israel. And the last one is going to determine whether you get a job at the Daily Wire or not. I don't know just how much I believe that. Um, I believe the fact that, after he came out to be like anti-Israel, not anti-Israel, but, asking questions, or just asking questions, bro. And so I believe that once that happened, that he was turned away from the Daily Wire, because that is kind of the natural thing. I did a video on this, by the way, on the Daily Wire and the hijacking of true conservatism, and this was kind of one of the key points. I mentioned both Nick Fuentes um, and Candace Owens as part of this phenomenon of the Daily Wire, basically excommunicating conservatives from their conservative free speech platform upon the basis of them not having a complete agreement with foreign aid to Israel, or their criticism of Israel in an explicit commentary capacity. So if you're in the Daily Wire and you're a political commentator, you cannot really say anything that is abjectly negative about Israel in your political commentary. Now you can hold the position to be, true that we shouldn't be sending foreign aid to Israel, or Israel has a political dominion over United States politics, but you just really shouldn't say it out loud. And that's what, they're doing with cucking Matt Walsh. And so he's like, well, I don't believe in foreign aid to Israel. I don't believe in that. I think we should just be America first. I think we should focus on America. Stop focusing on Israel. Yeah, but it's like, if the American political system is infested with that, then it's kind of fallacious to look the other way and call it America first, right? It's an equivocation. It's like, well, you can't really be America first without addressing this thing. And so I don't know just how much I believe that. I don't know how believable it is. I know a lot of people just take Nick's word as like fucking prophetic. Um, I don't know how much I buy that. Okay, I don't know how believable that is.
said, yeah. And I said, it sounds interesting, but I think I have everything I need right here in America. And she goes, oh, okay. She wraps up the interview and she gives me her card. We exchange information. I get involved with her. She was involved with RSBN. And if you know, that's Right Side Broadcasting Network. They did all the Trump rallies during the election. And when the election ended, they said they were going to start up a bunch of original programming. They had Mike Cernovich, Bill Mitchell, a bunch of these guys that were on Twitter. And she had a show. It's called Raised Right. And so she contacted Joe Seals, who's at RSBN, and she said, I saw this guy give the speech. He's really great. He debated this guy on campus. We should give this guy a show. And so I got in touch with them. We got to talking. This was around the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. They said, what do you want to call your show? I said, well, let's call it the Nicholas J. Fuentes Show. They said, that's too long. Nobody knows who you are. We don't want that. I said, okay. They said, you need a different name. I said, all right. So I watched the Trump inauguration, which was January 17, and he said in the speech, he said, a new vision will govern our land. It's going to be only America first. And I said, I like the sound of that. I said, we'll call it America First.
So question, how old are you exactly at this time?
I was 18.
18. Okay, so all of this sort of happened 17, 18 years old, or this all happened very quickly at the age of 18.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and it all happened rapidly, and this was a time when I was still even figuring out what I'm about, because I'm a teenager. And I've been extremely political since I was like 12 years old. I read Thomas Sowell, Milton Friedman, all that stuff, all the libertarian, conservative stuff, even a lot of the neocon stuff, honestly. I was kind of all over the place. And I started to get red-pilled. I started to go on 4chan. I started to go on far-right Twitter. I started to get into some of these more interesting ideas. And I wasn't sold yet. That's sort of the thing, is I was sort of in this questioning phase, not sort of innuendo, but questioning, my political ideology. Like, I had these libertarian priors, and I had this kind of pro-Israel bent because that's just what there was on the internet at that time. All of the online content, it was PJ Media, which was Shapiro and Bill Whittle and Andrew Klavan. It was PragerU, Breitbart. That's what there was. But then in 2016, you had this alt-right movement, and suddenly you had all these other people that were in the conversation. Like I said, these guys like Jared Taylor and Sam Francis and a whole other crew. And so I really was open-minded and questioning what I really believe. And so that's really when I came into conflict with this establishment, something that I sort of began to figure it out and started to pay the price for this line of inquiry. And so that first conversation I had with Cassie Dillon, it prefigured kind of like my entire adult life until this point. And at that time, in the early months of the Trump admin, I was doing some digging on the Israel situation. And there were some notable news stories with Obama and then with Trump that made me ask some questions. In December of 2016, during the lame duck, Obama declined to veto in the Security Council a resolution condemning the settlements in the West Bank. And everybody called him a Jew hater for doing that. They said he was an anti-Semite. And I said, well, wait a second. And I was a big conservative. I didn't like Obama. But I said, wait a second. I said, it is the official policy of the United States since 1967 that we're against the civilian settlements. Every president, Republican and Democrat. I said, and all Obama did, he didn't even vote no. He didn't veto it. He didn't vote in favor. They voted present, and they allowed the resolution to pass. I said, that's consistent with our government's policy, the American policy. Obviously, Israel and America don't have the same policy on everything. I said, but now you have Fox News and Mark Levin and all the usual suspects are saying he's an anti-Semite and a Jew hater because he merely advanced our own position. I said, isn't that a bit of a double standard? Isn't that hypocritical? I said, and you know what it sounds like? It sounds like the left. You disagree with the left on race, and they say you're a racist. You disagree with the left on Islam, you're an Islamophobe.
Yeah, and so this is one of the big points that I brought up in the, my takedown of the Daily Wire in my video. It was a short video, but it is rather comprehensive. The reason that it's not truly conservative is because a conservative doesn't operate. A true conservative, somebody that is conserving political norms that we believe to be normative, that we believe to be morally normative, that we believe to be moral prescriptions that are, true and good and virtuous, things of that nature. A conservative doesn't rely on these kind of ad hominems, these I guess I don't know what you call it. There's like pejoratives, right? Using these labels as pejoratives as kind of as demeaning any contrary political opinion to a standard political position and the so-called conservative party. And so these people are merely self-representing. They're kind of just trans conservatives. They're representing themselves as conservatives, despite the fact that they're obviously not, because conservatives don't do that. That's not what it conservative does. Okay.
And all the rest of it. And so that was something that really set off an alarm bell. I said, something's not right here. And I wrote a big article about it on my blog. A couple months later, guess who comes to town for Trump's first visit from a foreign leader? It's Bibi Netanyahu. That was the first foreign leader that he hosted at the White House. And Netanyahu goes up there. They do a joint press conference. And Trump turns to him and says, I need you to take it easy on those civilian settlements in the West Bank because it's a big liability for us. Netanyahu goes home and authorizes the largest expansion of the settlements in Israel's history.
Wait, that's super interesting. Is that on camera?
Yes.
And secondly, on the settlement issue, are you both on the same page?
As far as settlements, I'd like to see you hold back on settlements for a little bit. We'll work something out, but I would like to see a deal be made. I think a deal will be made. Bibi and I have known each other a long time. A smart man, great negotiator, and I think we're going to make a deal. It might be a bigger and better deal than people in this room even understand. That's a possibility. So let's see what we do.
Let's try it.
Doesn't sound too optimistic, but that's he's a good negotiator.
That's the art of the deal.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's pretty obscure because, if you're not watching this stuff day by day, it kind of slips through the cracks. But that was the first foreign visit. I remember it very distinctly. And so I said to Cassie Dillon.
So you're just more dialed into it at this time because I was paying attention to politics, definitely, obviously, because I was kind of getting kicked over the BLM stuff. But I would have never tuned into that because we weren't really confronted with the alliance as much in 2016. But you're kind of dialed in and you notice this moment. And Bibi just kind of says F you to Trump and proliferates it further.
Right, exactly. And I was paying attention because I was really big into foreign affairs. I was a big Model UN kid in high school. That was like my thing. So I was really focused on all that. And I just pay attention. I ask questions. I noticed the patterns, so to speak. And so at that point, I became friends with all the Daily Wire people. There was Cassie Dillon, this writer named Elliot Hamilton, a writer named Aaron Bandler. Those guys were Jewish, and I think they had visited Israel a lot. They were involved in Jewish groups. I thought they were my friends, and they were talking about, they were setting me up with a writing gig at Daily Wire. They basically did like a preliminary interview. They wanted me to work over there. And I did a lot of collaborations with them. I gave them interviews for articles because I was like a campus teen that was pro-Trump and all that. It was big fodder at that time for the culture war stuff. And then I started asking them. I said, why does the United States give Israel $3.8 billion per year? Because at that point, the new MOU had just passed, a new Memorandum of Understanding. That's the foreign aid for Israel. And they actually increased it. And they expanded it for 10 years. So I said, why are they the number one recipient of foreign aid?
Wait, how long is this? Jesus Christ, 2 hours.
I said, they're not a poor country. And I don't even really know what the strategic value is there. I said,
Hey, at least you guys are going to get the whole thing on YouTube. So
why, since 1978, uninterrupted, have they been number one? And number two and number three, it's the same story. It's Egypt and Jordan. They're the second and third biggest recipients. And we basically pay them because they normalized relations with Israel. It's like a bribe. I said, so, what do you make of this whole arrangement? I said, is it because they are our closest ally and I'm missing something? I said, or are we being lobbied? And there's this deep contradiction and double standard, and it's obviously being enforced by foreign influence and money. And I remember they hated the line of questioning.
And when you say they, you're referring to this friend group?
Yes, okay. This Daily Wire friend group. They were all writers there, and you could still find their articles online. And they, at first it was sort of playful. They said, oh, haha, very good. They almost thought I was joking. They said, oh, it's very funny, but you really shouldn't ask that, they would say. They'd say, there's a good answer for all those questions. They'd say, but the way you're asking it is anti-Semitic, they said. And, we're happy to talk with you one-on-one.
And by the way, again, this is kind of like an embellishment. Nobody really directly says it like this, right? They, you can see this in leftists as well. People that are trying to be, if you have leftist friends or if you have liberal friends, the way that they try to monitor or tone police you. It's usually if they're your friends and if they're trying to be polite and you have some kind of interest in working together and being friends and you're in communion, they're not going to be as direct in saying as like, hey, do not say that is anti-Semitic. They're going to bullshit it. They're going to wrap it in bullshit and they're going to give it to you in a kind of Well, the inside of it is bullshit, and they're gonna give you a nice wrapping. They're gonna try to say, well, yeah, it's not exactly the priority. This is not really the priority of what you should be looking at here, and it's kind of just derision and misdirection, which is just implicit. It is implicit, but that is what they're trying to get at, is that, hey, don't say this is anti-Semitic. If you're going to keep on saying this, then there are going to be consequences. Again, it's all implied, right? And so I don't have, I'll take Nick's one for it here, because I don't have access to these conversations, and we don't either. But again, we have reason to believe that it's true.
Person, like they're going to teach me how to ask the question. They said, because the way you're saying it, it sounds hateful and it's
Yeah.
wrong. And I said, I'm asking a question. It's free marketplace of ideas, I thought. So I kept pushing and pushing, and I was tugging on a lot of these different threads. I was also asking about World War II and about some of the narratives there. And I was asking about 9/11 and the Iraq War.
And where are you asking this? Are you in a group chat? Are you just face to face, like with your friends eating a burger? Like, where, when you say I keep asking these questions, what's the setup for that?
And again, due to like historical things, the standard for characterizing something as anti-Semitic has become so low. Like the bar is so low for considering something anti-Semitic, that just asking a question in a way that is direct, right, and is trying to get at a possible political problem. What they're saying is not, hey, this is the way that you're asking the question is anti-Semitic. What they're saying is the way that you're asking the question feels anti-Semitic to me. That's what's actually being said, right? Because the bar for anti-Semitism has been set so low that a kind of attitudinal intonation towards something that is not exactly in line with the common status quo notion and understanding of American politics in a Zionist capacity and a Zionist understanding is kind of, it has this aura of anti-Semitism, this looming cloud of anti-Semitic potential. This question has so much anti-Semitic potential. That's why it's anti-Semitic. The way you're asking the question, it's anti-Semitic.
We're texting in group chats, and we're even doing it one-on-one. One of the venues, we had a big Christmas party out in Western Massachusetts, and Cassie Dillon invites me back to her apartment with a couple of friends, and everyone's drinking wine. I don't drink, so I wasn't drinking, but we're playing apples to apples, and it's a party atmosphere. We're friends, we're having fun, we're political, we're talking about it. And this is the venue, and it just got increasingly cold over time, and it turned into stop. Like, you need to stop asking or else. And eventually, I kept pushing on a lot of these different things, and Cassie hits me up on Twitter, and she texts me this huge block text paragraph, and she says, we're not in the same movement anymore. She goes, I don't really recognize what you're about and your views. She says, I'm pro-Israel. She goes, and the things you're asking, the things you're saying about Ben Shapiro and other people, she goes, I'm just not a part of that movement. And she said, so we can't be friends anymore. So she stops talking to me, cuts me off completely. All the other people block me. Elliot, Aaron, there were some other people involved. They all block me on Twitter, complete ghosting. And I'm shocked. I'm floored. This is my first encounter with this kind of pushback, because you go into it as an 18-year-old in college and you get involved in these groups. I was involved in the Trump campaign, YAL, all these groups. And you think this is the free marketplace. We're here to debate ideas. It's a free speech atmosphere. And I'm also thinking we're all pro-Trump. And that's another big dimension of this is me. Trump was a huge influence on me. He made me a nationalist when I was a conservative. And America first was that operative phrase. I wasn't any longer a small government, constitutional individualist. I said, I'm America first. I'm about America.
Also, it's kind of unintelligible to me, because it's like, if you're a Zionist and you're in this kind of domain and you're in this sphere, the neocon Zionist, I feel like if you're a Zionist, you're a neoconservative Zionist in this political domain, you should be able to answer that question pretty easily, right? So this is why it's giving me reason to think that um, it's not just like, hey, well, why are we giving so much foreign aid to Israel? Hey, stop saying that. It's anti-Semitic. Shut up, right? I have reason to believe that it's kind of like more of a argument, like a more of a debate, right? Because I have a hard time thinking that these neoconservative political pundits would not be able to give a surface level answer from that to that from their political position, from their political paradigm. Like, you could say, well, geostrategic interests, shit like that. Like Israel has benefits for the United States. They're our biggest ally because they're the only standing democracy in the Middle East that is supporting of the United States. Like these are standard answers that you would be able to give. So again, the nature of this thing that Nick claims to have happened, I was like, I believe that he was excommunicated from this community because of his position or his questioning, but I don't know exactly know how it occurred. I don't think political pundits at that level would just shy away from a question like that with like absolutely zero response. I have more reason to believe that it's like a back and forth, like, well, uh, why does Israel? Why do we give so much foreign aid to Israel? Well, because of geostrategic interests, and Israel is the only standing political democracy in the Middle East that is in support of the United States and shit like that. And then Nick Fuentes would, give pushback, and he'll be like, well, okay, what are these geostrategic interests? And then they get into like a bit of a quibble about that. And so that's how I see like this being intelligible or convincingly understandable to be like what actually happened. It's like, yeah, they grew progressively cold over time as a consequence of like more bickering and more argumentation. I don't know how much I believe the idea that, hey, you just ask the question and they're like, hey, shut the fuck up. Okay. So that's that. But I do believe the story.
And so there's this deep contradiction on the Trump strain in particular and what they're pushing. And I said it really shouldn't be there. If we're America first on China, Mexico, Russia, everybody else, NATO, why aren't we America first on Israel? So this was deeply disconcerting and weird and disturbing to me. And I was honestly just taken aback. I was like, why are my friends now turning their back on me because of a disagreement? Well, fast forward. I'm doing my show on RSBN. This is in my second semester, so this is winter and spring 2017. And I'm doing the show. The show's going okay. I'm not getting great viewership. Nobody was. And I get a call from my boss, Joe Seals, who runs RSBN. And he goes, you got to keep this between us. He says, but did something happen between you and Cassie? Because she's still doing her show too. I said, yeah, we had this falling out, blah, blah, blah. He goes, she's been calling me every day for the past 2 weeks. He goes, and she's telling me, well, Nick said this on his show. Isn't that so racist? Nick said this on his show. Isn't that so hateful? That's not conservative. He says, and she's been trying to get you fired, calling me literally every day for 2 weeks. I said, wow. I said, I can't say I'm surprised. I said, she gave me this very cold, standoffish thing. She blocked me, all the rest. He goes, not only that, he's a pastor. He says, she's talking to me about converting to Judaism, which of course she now has. Fast forward all this time later, about a year ago, she marries some Israeli guy and she converts to Judaism. But he goes, I'm a Christian. He's an evangelical pastor. He says, and I'm trying to talk her in off the ledge. I don't know what's gotten into her, all this. And so this was how my college career began. That's sort of what created me. And then for the next 3, 4, 5 months, my life turned upside down where it was these people like Cassie, this guy Cabot Phillips. I think he was a campus reform. I think he might be a Daily Wire now. His father, Tim Phillips, ran this big nonprofit, Americans for Prosperity. He's friends with Morton Blackwell from Leadership Institute. This guy was coming at me. He was on me all the time on Twitter. And these people were just pushing this line.
Oh,
Nick Fuentes is alt-right. He's a white nationalist. He's a Jew hater. He's an anti-Semite. And, me at that time as an 18-year-old guy, I'm thinking I'm just asking questions, I'm just doing what we're supposed to do. It's free speech. I'm America first, the rest of it. And then the first big hit piece was actually written about me by Media Matters. Come to find out, Media Matters sourced the material from Cassie Dillon. She sent one of my clips, and I'll admit, it wasn't the finest clip. I stand by it, but it was.
So, like, I'm trying to be very unbiased here. And so, like, the object of my analysis here is trying to make the other eligible, right? Because again, in the way that he embellishes the story, the way that he represents the story, it makes it kind of cartoonish in a way that it's completely irrational on the side of the opposition, or the side of his oppressors. Okay, the people that are excising him from politics, political commentary. And I'm just trying to make the other side I'm trying to make the other side intelligible, because this representation just is kind of like a caricature that it's almost fucking cartoonish, right? Like, you listen to this and it's like, how could you possibly not defend Nick here? And so you gotta have to be wary of this whenever you're dealing with political pundits, whoever they may be, and they're talking about their political upcoming, when there've been uh, I guess I keep using the word excommunicated, but there's probably a better word for it. When they've been kind of cast out of their political communities, or in the Conservative Party, because everybody, these niche figure, not niche. She's not a very niche figure, but these political pundits that have this kind of story of, well, I was excised from uh, mainstream conservatism because of these reasons. It can often be portrayed as a very one-sided thing. And it could totally be the case that it's both two-sided, and Nick is right. The two are not mutually exclusive. So what I'm trying to do is make it intelligible. It's like, okay, well, why would they think that Nick is an anti-Semite for asking these questions and being persistent in asking these questions? Well, it's like, you have to understand the political landscape at the time. It's not as easy. It was not as easy to openly talk about Israel at all. That was not the object of overall political discussion at all. People weren't really that much concerned about Israel Palestine. People weren't really that concerned about foreign policy. They weren't really concerned about, even the people that are leftists. People that were leftists, they wouldn't talk about the conspiracies of this kind in American governance and politics. So it was kind of very out of the ordinary to talk about something like that, except for people that were very extreme, that are in fact anti-Semitic. So in 2016, there was a very big uprising, and again, like Nick said, the alt-right figures, who are all almost abjectly and openly anti-Semitic. This is not a value judgment of whether they're right or wrong in saying that or not. I'm trying to give you an intelligible accounting of the opposition. And so, with that being the case, the only people that were talking about Israel were people that could abjectly be characterized by that standard as anti-Semitic, right? By their standard as anti-Semitic. So if the only people who are talking about it are these kind of people, it's easy to make an equivocation when an 18-year-old kid starts, and he's a conservative, he starts asking questions about Israel, and it's kind of it's the discussion and the discourse around Israel by these people, and only by these people, is kind of centered around this trolling, meta background of, I'm just asking questions, bro, as kind of like an ironic way of propagandizing. And so it's easy to equivocate somebody like that with this group of people if they can stand out. If these group of people stand out and there's nobody else talking about what these people are talking about. And so that's kind of the only way that I could intelligibly understand um, why what happened to Nick happened to Nick. Okay, as again, not a value judgment as to whether it is right or wrong. I think it would probably be more reasonable to say that it is wrong. Okay, but um, it's not an incredibly comprehensive description of the reason that the people that did what they did to him did what they did. Okay, and that's reasonable because it is his life story. He's telling it from his perspective. But I just wanted to, from an unbiased perspective, from just to have some coherent uh, analysis, commentary. I'd like to put that in.
was, the way that I said it was sort of unfortunate. But she took a clip from my show. She sent it to Media Matters, and they did this big hit piece about me. And then I had the left breathing down my neck, Right Wing Watch, Media Matters, all the rest of them. And this was kind of like the launch of my career. They were trying to throttle me in the crib.
How do you know that Cassie sent the clip to Media Matters?
This was told to me by Joe Seals.
Okay, got it. So she was sending around clips from your show.
Right. And that's their move. That's what they do. As you know. And the show wasn't even big. I had like 100 live viewers. I would get 1,000 views per episode. But they were on top of this. And even Ben Shapiro, he quote tweeted one of my tweets and said, because I said something to the effect of, if you're a Mexico.
And this is a good thing to bring up. It's like, well, how come there's so much attention on a guy that has only 100 viewers, right? Only 100 live viewers is not politically relevant. But it is important to understand that the job of these organizations and these kind of nonprofits like the ADL, they literally have people watching any upcoming or new or rather niche or obscure political pundits or commentators or people that are just giving their political analysis on basic things or foreign policy, whatever it may be, that may in some capacity relate to Israel, or in some way may stray away from right-wing conservatism that is accepted by the status quo. I have people that are paid to watch this and look for it, to look for that clip, to look for that thing. Okay? This is literally what these people, this is the job of some people. This is literally their livelihood, their occupation, is to watch obscure, niche, upcoming political commentators and political pundits and see if they stray away from the status quo. Okay? So, yeah, this is entirely reasonable.
First, live in Mexico. If you're China first, live in China. If you're Israel first, live in Israel. And he quote tweets me on Christmas Eve and says, well, that's the surest sign you're an anti-Semite, is to accuse a Jew of dual loyalty. And I'm sitting there like, it's true. You do have dual loyalty. You're going to sit there and say you don't? So this was like it's maddening. It's literally will drive you crazy because by definition, it's gaslighting because you see it. If you're a logical person, it's obvious. And
and I want to make this abundantly clear. The standard for dual loyalty is often misunderstood. It's often not defined, right? The standard for dual loyalty, what is the signification or what is the indication as to whether somebody has dual loyalty, right? It's if they have external loyalty to an external country more than they do for their own motherland, for their home country, or the country that they were born in, or the country that they were a citizen in and they were born in. And so if you're an American and you have more allegiance to Egypt than you do America, if you're an Egyptian American and you have more allegiance to Egypt than America, then yeah, you have dual loyalty. Yeah, but if you're just if you're an American and you strongly support another country, then I don't take that, and not at the detriment of your own country, then that is not dual loyalty. But if you take the value of another country and another country's interests that you have an affinity for at the detriment of your own country, then yeah, you have absolutely dual loyalty. And I have great reason to believe that is the case with Ben Shapiro. Everybody has great reason to believe that is the case with Ben Shapiro, right? He wants America to go to war with Iran. He wants America to go to war with Iran on the behalf of Israel. So obviously, he has dual loyalty. That is at the abject negation of interest for the United States. It is not in the interest of the United States to go to war with Iran for Israel. It's just not. It's just not the case. But Ben Shapiro does believe that. And you could go into a long investigation about what Ben Shapiro believes about, Israel and America, but I think it can be more succinctly characterized by this very quote from Ben Shapiro himself. The single guarantor of my allegiance to America is the existence of Israel. He said something like that. It's not it's me paraphrasing. It's not an exact quotation. But he said something in that line. The value of the proposition is essentially reductive to something like that. Okay? And so if you're somebody like that, then it is true. You have dual loyalty. So Nick is just right here. Ben Shapiro has dual loyalty by any standard of dual loyalty that is actually logical. Yes, Ben Shapiro has dual loyalty. This is just absolutely true.
This is something that maybe is helpful to explain my mindset. I'm waiting for someone to prove me wrong. I'm pushing on all these narratives, the foreign aid, the Iraq war, all of it. And I'm waiting for someone to tell me, here's all the evidence, the obvious evidence that it isn't all just a big thing. Mm-hmm. It's not just a big conspiracy. And I'm asking in good faith, where is that evidence? Cassie, my friend, and all the rest of them. And instead of getting an answer, I'm getting blocked. I'm getting tattled on. I'm getting clipped out of context. They're selling me out to the left. I'm getting called names. And, from the very start, this made me extremely cynical and resentful and furious about the whole thing. And I said, I'm like at war now with the whole conservative establishment, and the same opportunities for advancement that other people are getting. They get their spot on Fox News, or they get to run a Turning Point chapter, you name it. I'm now being closed off because there's this smear campaign now going on behind the scenes of powerful, connected people at Daily Wire, a whisper campaign telling everybody this guy's an anti-Semite. And this went on really for many years, goes on until this day. But that was sort of my origin story. That's how I got started.
Okay, so you were 18 years old when that happened. How old are you now?
I'm 26.
Okay, so that was a long time ago.
Yes.
And since then, would you say that going through that period of being rejected when you were literally just asking questions from people who were your friends and then kind of sold down the river, did that then make you go, okay, no, actually, I do hate Jews because of what you're doing to me? I'm now responding, and my response is I hate you all.
No,
definitely more radicalized. I don't think he would. I don't think he would characterize it as I hate Jews. That would just be optically stupid. Nobody. He's not going to say that. In a way, yeah. I mean, in a way, it induces radicalization. It incentivizes radicalization purely out of just like spite. Like it could totally do that just out of like spite and vitriol, and yeah.
Never said I hated all Jews, and I've always had Jewish friends. Laura Loomer actually used to be a friend of mine back in 2018. We did a show together in June 2018.
Sorry, that was just funny.
I had a Jewish assistant at one point in 2019 after the Groyper War. I'm a Catholic. I've always been a Catholic. I'm a cradle Catholic. So I've never hated anybody. I do have some provocative statements and some controversial views, but I never said they're attacking me, now I hate them all. I never took it that far. But what it did do is it demonstrated that, where there's smoke, there's fire. Mm-hmm. Clearly, if you're pushing on something and you get that hard of a pushback, I'm thinking, I'm not a big deal. I'm an 18-year-old kid. I don't have a big show. What do people care what I have to say? If I'm pushing on this and I'm getting forceful response from these institutions, Campus Reform, Daily Wire, the rest of it, I'm thinking something must be up. So what I did is I just kept pursuing that line of inquiry and saying, well, if this is what they don't want us to talk about, this is what we should be talking about. Obviously, there's something they're hiding there. And this led what I would describe it as is like an 8-year inquiry. I've been digging into this subject for 8 years, and it's sort of a difficult subject because since it is so taboo and since it is so censored, there's like this layered deception where the first layer is they make it so that you don't even want to think about it. No one wants to be thinking about the Jews, or Israel. And certainly nobody wants to be on the wrong side of that. No one wants to be called an anti-Semite or a Nazi or a Hitler. That's sort of layer one. But layer two, because there's so much censorship, you don't even know where to get the information. If somebody wants to know more about this topic, try Googling it. All the search results are curated. If you go on Wikipedia, the sources are curated. So where do you go next? Well, you have to go to the kooks and the cranks and people that have been canceled.
Exactly.
Some of them have been canceled because there are hateful people in this world that do hate Jews.
This is what I talked about.
There are people out there that are schizophrenic, but they're lumped in, censored, and called names and banished from society.
Yeah, essentially, this is the equivocation where like somebody like Nick Fuentes he starts talking about this, and because there's nobody else talking about it, then on par with people like fucking Eric Stryker, who's like a literal tard. Um, yeah, he's absolutely right here.
Just like the real scholars, just like people like Ron Owens, just like people like Michael Collins Piper, people that have investigated this and are intelligent, logical people. And so once you sort of descend into the second layer, the second ring of hell of being an anti-Semite, then you have to parse out the information and discern what's real, what's fake. Is it a religious thing? Is it a racial thing? Is it an Israel thing, a nation state thing? And then there's subtleties even beyond that, things I've been getting into on my show for the past few years. The deception is so much more convoluted and nuanced and subtle and ubiquitous than even people think. A lot of people think, and, not to kind of leap right into the topic, but people have a vague notion Israel has too much influence over our government. That's really just the tip of the iceberg. Because then you get into some of these people that have coalesced around Trump in the past couple of years after October 7th. And it's like there's an obvious reason why there's elements in the right. There's almost this form of camouflage they'll do. And one day they're limited government, another day they're white nationalists. Guys like Stephen Miller, who will present as very racialist and very nationalistic, very conservative, but yet still extremely loyal to Israel. And you start to say it's not just that Israel influences the government. It's not just there's some vague thing going on. There is this pervasive penetration of our society by a fifth column. And it's so sophisticated and multidimensional and spans many disciplines. It's such a huge topic that you almost have to be a little bit insane to tackle it and to get to the bottom of it, which is sort of me going through the looking glass over the past 8 years. So
All right, so I want to tell you where I agree with you and where I don't agree with you. But first, I just want to ask you, going back to your high school years, because obviously you were very dialed in. You cared about politics. I think you mentioned that you were involved with the UN. What did you say when you were in high school?
Model UN.
Model UN. What's that? What organization is that?
It's like a debate club,
okay,
but you simulate the United Nations.
So politics was a passion for you.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned that you're Catholic.
Yes.
Raised cradle Catholic. You said.
Yes.
Mom and dad in the home.
Yes.
Okay. So I think on your show, somebody told me that you mentioned your mom a lot. Were they together married?
Yes.
Okay. So your parents are still married?
Yes.
So you come from a pretty good home, it sounds like, obviously. You still have a good relationship with your parents.
Mm-hmm.
And you went to Boston University.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going great for you. You kind of should be, like you said, maybe offered a contributorship on Fox News, and your whole life kind of gets derailed.
Right.
Where I'm going to push back on you is to say that you didn't have this anger where you applied it to everyone. Because and I don't have this clip, but I know that recently, and this was after I was fired from the Daily Wire, you kind of went on the attack about me speaking to Dave Smith, right? And saying, actually, I think we do have that clip. Skylar, I think we do have that clip of me speaking to Dave Smith. Do you want to run that clip?
She has nothing to do with me. She wants nothing to do with me. Doesn't do anything with me. No invitation. Won't bring me on the space. Won't bring me on the show. No acknowledgement. Nothing.
He's so
but
fucking
she is
funny.
going to do a show with Dave Smith, Jew, Aiden Ross. And I like Aiden Ross. I've said that before. I like Aiden Ross. But it's like you get canceled and attacked by Jews, and then you go and give it away to all the Jews, really? And finally, Aiden asks her, so what are your thoughts on Nick Fuentes? And she gives this load of PC response. She goes, well, when he was a kid, he got attacked by them. And I understand why he would be angry and why he would be mad about that. But he needs to grow up and figure out what he wants to do. Oh, really? Oh, really? Bafangul, Candace. Oh, he needs to figure out what he wants to do. I think you need to figure that out.
Nice reference. He's so fucking... I just need to say this. He's so fucking funny. It's just like... It's part of, like, even if saying he has some political opinions that are... He's just, like, the comedy just makes up for it. Like, how could you not watch the show and enjoy it? It's just so fucking, it's so funny. He's so funny.
Accusing other people of that which you are guilty, I think he needs to figure out what he wants to do. I think you need to figure out what you want to do, because you're full of and everyone knows it. You clearly have no idea what you're doing.
No idea what I am doing.
True.
What do you mean true?
You didn't invite me on the show.
But what does that, just let's first go back to the first layer of what you're talking about. She's speaking of Dave Smith. Yeah. What does that have to do with anything? You call out the fact that I spoke to Dave Smith, that I spoke to Aiden Ross. I didn't speak to them because they were Jewish. I also talked to Piers Morgan, all of these shows following me being fired. So you're just looking at the fact that these two, I didn't even know Aiden Ross was Jewish. I just had a PR agent say, do this. I swear I didn't know.
He's visibly Jewish.
Okay, but just so we're very clear,
No, I know.
I genuinely had no idea. Your PR person comes, here are the shows. Okay, yes. Dave Smith, we had amazing conversation when I was on the Daily Wire.
Mm-hmm.
And so your purview here is, okay, well, they're Jewish and she's doing their shows while not saying to your audience she's doing a bunch of other shows too. How is that not you just kind of honing in? Before we get to why you think I'm
picking, it is cherry picking. It's like, hey, you're talking to Jewish people, but you're not talking to me. It's like, okay, well, these two people just happen. Okay, it's not like there's an exclusive, it's not like there's an exclusive campaign by Candace Owens here to just like speak to Jews, even though it might seem that way because she talked to so many fucking rabbis. But yeah, Candace is on a good line of inquiry here. So yeah,
Sure.
full of
Yeah.
and don't know what I'm doing.
Well, here's the beef, okay? And it's pretty simple. Dave Smith, in my opinion, and I like Dave because I've done a show with Dave too, and I think he's a good guy. I respect him. I think he's super intelligent. And, he gave me a chance when a lot of people wouldn't. He had
Dave Smith. Is this the same Dave Smith that we're talking about? Like the guy that was on Joe Rogan? That guy's a fucking idiot. He's like completely he's completely clueless. Like if you just want a demonstration of this, watch his debate with Andrew Wilson. He's a fucking libertarian. This guy is literally a libertarian, right? And so it was just a brutal demolition by Andrew Wilson in that debate. Just demonstrates him to be a complete fucking idiot. Completely clueless. Has no idea what he's talking about. Like at the very foundation for his worldview. And I think this is very important for analyzing somebody's politics, is analyzing their philosophical beliefs, understanding the foundation for their prescriptions for society, because there's foreign policy and things like this that are generally dependent upon surface level empirical facts and data about political happenings. But if you're a libertarian and the way that you do political analysis, even of foreign policy, is going to be dependent on this libertarian view of the world. And this extends to not just foreign policy, but different implications for prescriptions for society. People ought to do this because I'm a libertarian and I think this is the best thing to do. And then you give your reasons for that. And this crosses over to different areas of politics that are not necessarily philosophy dependent, right? So it's important to critique that, to see, well, does this person's worldview really hold up? And if it doesn't, it's kind of, it's kind of an indication that the person is not, that they don't really know what they're talking about that much, that they're kind of clueless. So, for the most part.
Me on his show, and he defended me because he got attacked a lot from the libertarians.
And that's why you suck, because you get somebody who comes out and defends you and has you on the show when you're being canceled, and then you throw him under the bus for, because like I don't even know what your beef is. It's like, why not just have be totally like, oh yeah, that was cool, we had a conversation, I disagree with him on some points.
Well, here's why. Because I don't think that I should be grateful for being given a chance.
It's not being grateful. It's just being a decent enough human being. Forget gratefulness.
Okay.
You don't owe anybody anything.
Okay.
But the point is you kind of lament the fact that you've been canceled. You lament the fact when nobody will have your platform. And in the very same breath, talk about being a hypocrite, you're going after Dave Smith for what? Like, why is she doing Dave Smith? Jew.
Well, I'll tell you. Can I explain why? I'm telling you why.
You can.
So my feeling on Dave Smith, and although I like him, is that, look, he is Jewish. He's also a libertarian, which means that,
Exactly.
when he talks about, for example, the situation in Iran or Israel, he's an anti-war guy. He says, Trump is a war criminal who needs to be impeached. I don't believe in any of that. I don't care that Trump violated international law. I care that he's influenced by a foreign government. He said on another show, he said, Israel's a satellite of the U.S. We're the empire, and they're our satellite. They're like our aircraft carrier in the Middle East, which is something Joe Biden said, who's an AIPAC man. I think that Dave Smith is somebody who, because he's a paleo-libertarian, like Murray Rothbard, like Ron Paul, like a lot of these guys, he is someone who, because he's anti-war, is sort of forced to confront the Israel lobby. Because if you're anti-war, ideologically, you have to talk about who's driving it, which is the Israel lobby. But he's not a religious Christian. He's a religious Jew or agnostic or atheist. He's not really a right-wing guy. He's a libertarian. He's
not a religious Jew.
He says that he's proud of being Jewish. He's proud of his ethnicity. He's proud of Judaism.
Should he not be proud that he's he's just born this way?
Well, but here's the point, though, is so he's not really 100% aligned with my view. Now, here's why that matters. I think that
it doesn't.
No, it does.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. I'll tell you why.
It doesn't. You can't say I want to create people in the image of myself.
No, but
That's
I'm
completely ridiculous.
I'm criticizing people that I disagree with. And to put it very succinctly, I think that this conversation about Israel has blown up. It's gotten out of their control. Everyone's getting red-pilled. They want to control the conversation. And I think that Dave Smith is somebody that, because he's Jewish, because he's libertarian, they have selected him as a convenient spokesperson for it. Because he doesn't really have a problem with Jews and their Jewishness. He doesn't really talk about the whole fifth column aspect of it. He talks about a very narrow aspect of it, which is there's this Israel lobby and they're sort of influential and they're driving us to war. That's one small selection of it.
So you think, just to clarify, you think he's like a psychological operation?
Yeah, effectively, yes. Okay. And I don't think he's doing that knowingly, but I think that they're creating the bounds of the debate by having him be the spokesperson, because
who is choosing him as a spokesperson? I mean,
Joe Rogan,
I could not disagree with that more. I just want to say that I patently disagree with you on this one. This is crazy. I think that he has moved the ball forward so much for, first and foremost, a lot of American Jews to have the courage to even question Israel, because in the same way that we were kind of brought up in the classroom with the, I guess you want to call it, emotional engineering around the Holocaust, learning about the Holocaust as like the biggest, most evil event that ever happened. Imagine if you're Jewish and you learn about that. It's the same way that Black Americans in the classrooms learn about slavery. So I understood the trigger emotional response that Black Americans had during BLM, because there was so much conditioning that happened in the classroom that makes them think that when someone says white supremacy is back, you have to riot. And I will extend that same understanding. Mm-hmm. I disagree with it, but I understand that when October 7th happens, it's almost like a childhood trauma for these people. Right. You learn this, your whole existence, it's existential crisis for you that something happened in Israel. And then you add in the fact that the ADL is sponsoring these trips to kind of make sure that they stay into this, this is who you are. And if somebody questions this, like we could end up in the Holocaust again. You have to have some sort of an understanding, even if it's they're wrong,
right? You
have to give them a little bit of time, a little bit of grace here. And so for him to be doing what he's doing and to be enduring a lot of the same stuff that I'm enduring, like he is on lists, he is being attacked by every single people, all people that are attacking me are certainly attacking Dave Smith. Mm-hmm. And your excuse is that he just is born Ashkenazi.
No, that's not my excuse. My problem,
and he's married to a Catholic, by the way. So that that's the part that I am even more confused about, because you said like he's a religious Jew. No, he's not. He's married to a Catholic.
What I mean by that is my criticism of Jews comes from a religious place. As a Catholic, we recognize that the Pharisees put Jesus on the cross, and the Talmudic Jews are the descendants of the Pharisees. And we also recognize...
And he is not a Talmudist. That's what I want to say.
But that's
he's
not
saying. Any of those things. He's married to a Catholic. Okay. He's just born Ashkenazi. So when I hear you say, Dave Smith, Jew, I think it conflicts with your point about how even white people, like you're just kind of trained that you should just like, there's something wrong with you for being born white. No one should feel guilty about how they're born.
Look, it's
you know what I mean?
To sum it up succinctly, it's tokenism is what it is. It's a form of saying, we're criticizing the Jews in Israel. How do we soften and dampen the blow? Because we're going to get called anti-Semites if we bring on a guy criticizing Israel. I know we'll bring on a Jewish person, because then we get to say, I'm not an anti-Semite. Here's a Jewish person saying this. And here's the reason.
That's not why I had Dave Smith on. Actually,
Okay.
I had him on my podcast before I even left the Daily Wire. We had a 3-hour conversation talking about war, and truly, because I think it's important for you to hear this. I think sometimes you internet too hard. The way that Dave Smith came onto our podcast on Daily Wire, he wasn't even on my radar. Skylar, who you just met, the producer, was a massive Dave Smith fan for years. And just kind of like what the libertarian debate was that was being had. He's like, you got to check out this guy, Dave Smith. And I was like, cool, book him. Let's get him on the show. And it was my favorite podcast that I did at Daily Wire. Mm-hmm. So I just liked him.
Okay.
That's it. There was no incentive of like, well, let me get this guy on again. I was like, can we create the magic of what we spoke about war? Because I'm kind of falling, I guess, down the rabbit hole and learning a lot. And he had a lot of information I didn't know.
Yeah.
And that was it. So there was nothing behind it. So when I hear you say it, I'm like, okay, are you interneting too hard? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little bit. Do you think that you can kind of believe your own ideas? And look, we're all guilty of that.
No, and look, I mean, I'm going to stand by my point here, which is that me and Dave Smith are not ideologically on the same page, and will never be, because I am a Catholic and he is Jewish. Because he is Jewish, he still has affinity with Jewish people. And so my end game is to say, look, Thomas Aquinas...
this is kind of stupid. It's like, you can never be ideologically aligned with somebody that shares a different, different ethnicity, or somebody that has a different race. Like, okay, what does it mean to be ideologically aligned? Like, are you ideologically aligned about Israel? This is supposedly what he's talking about. He's like, me and Dave cannot be ideologically aligned about Israel and our views on Jews because he's Jewish and I'm a Catholic. But it's like, it's not really Jewish, religiously, at least you're speaking. If you're saying that my problem comes from the fact that I'm a Catholic and Talmudic Jews are descendants of the Pharisees, and it's coming from a religious position, right? Then it doesn't really make sense in the case of Dave Smith, because he's not a religious Jew. So in that capacity, I don't see the relation here. I don't, unless then you'd have to, it would logically necessitate that your problem wouldn't just be religious. It would be with the fact that he's ethnically Jewish, which I think he's conceding now. But again, the criticism itself of Candace Owens is like, well, you're not bringing me on. I think he could have, he definitely should have phrased it better. I think what he was really trying to say is that there is this ideological critique of this thing that is the essence, right? And Candace Owens is starting to talk about, the Zionist, the Jewish lobby. And Nick says it's actually deeper than how far you're willing to go, right? And you're not having that position on. You're not giving a voice to that position, but you're having the standard status quo position of people like Dave Smith, or people that are like only getting into the surface level analysis of this issue. And that's fallacious, because it actually serves to reinforce that issue. I think that's what he's saying. But he kind of represented it in this way. It's like, you're just not having me on. Why are you not having me on? But yeah. Anyway, this is a boring point. It's fucking stupid. I really don't give a shit about this. It's like, who cares? You said this and I said that. Who cares, man? Just, it's like a meta conversation. These meta conversations are so fucking boring and stupid. It's like, well, let's have a conversation about the conversation we're having and why we're having the conversation and the way that we're having the conversation. It's like, just shut the fuck up. Please, just say so. Talk about the actual thing. Okay? You're here now. How about you talk about the actual positions? So, Candace is just doing this because she's fucking butthurt, right? She's bringing it up because she's butthurt, and she doesn't really like the criticism. She thinks it's unfair, and it may be, but it's like, emphasis on that, overemphasis on that, it's just kind of like, you're shitting on the quality of the podcast. It's like, it's detrimental to the very point that you should be having Nick Fuentes on for. So, yeah.
Said that Jewish people should be basically enserfed to the Catholic Church. I don't believe that. But the idea that we have Jewish people in America that are billionaires, that are running all the major media conglomerates, that are influencing the government, and they take advantage of the dual citizenship, it literally cannot be allowed. Like by definition, systematically or systemically, this creates problems. And so when I go on my show, I'm saying we can't have Jewish people in government. Like, we can't have them having billions of dollars. This is a problem. It's like a national security problem because they are a fifth column. And as evidenced by recent developments, they're not loyal to America. Now,
I agree with you. And that's why I want to add this. I agree with you on the point that there is this operating fifth column of Zionism.
No.
Okay? No, but I want to be clear. And I'll tell you, this is where we disagree.
All right.
Because I think it's ridiculous to say to someone who's literally just born, he's like, I'm Ashkenazi, that is just his DNA, who is married to a Catholic, so you cannot call him a religious Jew. He is not a Zionist. He hasn't even been to Israel. So how do you just condemn him? And then also, how is that not toxic to what you're trying to do? So if you're saying that your entire platform is, I want to awaken people to this fifth column. Well, if I'm a Jewish person, okay, and I'm being raised and maybe I'm worried about Israel because I kind of grew up and was told that I have to care about this because of the Holocaust, whatever it is. And I see this guy who's just going, Jew, guilty, you're a Jew, doesn't matter, DNA, like you're 23andMe up there, Jew, guilty, okay? And you think that your ideas are going to grow with that perspective?
Well, they are. So that's happening. But
is that because of thanks to you or thanks to Dave?
I think it's thanks to me. But if you're asking me, I will answer. If you're lecturing me, I'll take the lecture.
I genuinely I'm asking you the question sincerely.
I'll
you think it's growing because of you and not because of people like Dave who are going, okay, like, yeah, you can also think like this. It's okay to have this perspective.
Yeah, okay. So this
like
is, I've done videos, I guess like you could call it a course on debate. And, because this is essentially turned into like a mini debate. It's like an argument that they're having. And so in opposition to somebody, in opposition to your opponent, well, that your opponent is like extremely calm and they're trying to, I guess, kind of tame you, because that's what's happening right now. Just spurging out, which is what Candace is doing right now. She's motor mouthing unduly. It's not always wrong to motor mouth. Like, you can do it in the capacity of winning a debate. You can absolutely speed talk to just generate more points, generate more backup arguments, generate more evidence, demonstrate a higher level of competency in opposition to the person that you're debating. Like, you can do all of that, but it's also about the intonation. She is just having a breakdown here. She's just kind of just spurging out. There's a difference between talking fast and spurging. She's doing the second one. So
it's because they're watching your show and they're going, he's got it right.
Let me give you a direct answer about the first part about Dave Smith. Just because he's born Jewish. What did he say when he went on Joe Rogan and he debated, what's the guy's name? He debated the British guy,
Douglas Murray.
Douglas Murray. Mm-hmm. When he debated Douglas Murray said, and you hear this is the woke right phenomenon, which Dave has criticized, but Douglas said, there is this dark element that is growing on the right. They're Holocaust deniers. They hate Jews. If they slip on a banana peel, they blame a Jew and all the rest of it. Dave Smith said, I agree with you. Those people are a problem. I'm against Holocaust denial and all this sort of stuff. Joe Rogan went on the attack against Jake Shields, who's a friend of mine and a fighter and a boxer. And you see this over and over and over again with people like Dave Smith and even someone like Daryl Cooper, who's not Jewish. And I talked to Daryl recently and we kind of made amends, but Daryl Cooper put out an article on a Substack saying the same thing. He said, I started talking about the Jews. I opened up this can of worms. Now that's all people want to hear about. He said, so I'm done talking about it because, there's people that can't handle it and they're taking it too far. And when I hear that from Daryl Cooper, when I hear that from Dave Smith, when they say Israel's our satellite, our aircraft carrier, I say something's not right here. There's clearly a subtle difference here. And that has a lot to do with, maybe Daryl Cooper not being a complete radical. And I think that has a lot to do with Dave Smith being Jewish because he says that his ancestors died in the Holocaust. Now, I don't think that he'll ever be able to say in the way that I can, that maybe the Holocaust wasn't legitimate or, maybe there's more to the story on World War II because it's his grandparents.
Okay, but
he says my ancestors went up the smokestacks at Auschwitz. And someone like me, I say, I don't care about Auschwitz. I don't care about the Holocaust. I'm done hearing about it. I have no affinity with that.
Right. But you also mentioned Daryl Cooper and you also mentioned Joe Rogan. These two people are not Jewish, right?
Right.
So are you saying that they're all condemned? Like, why does it matter? If Dave Smith, maybe he believes that, maybe he's wrong, maybe he believes it, who knows? If Joe Rogan says that, maybe he's wrong, maybe he believes it. Let's say we don't know. Daryl Cooper, what is the difference between these three individuals? Like, why is one represent a problem for you versus like your idea, going back to what you said, right? Let's tackle the idea. Let's actually debate the idea. So do you not see how you run into conflict with yourself? You're like, well, here's my story. I just wanted to debate the idea. And then when it comes to Dave Smith, rather than saying, I disagree with what you just said about whatever topic, saying that there is this strand,
Do people typically debate in political interviews? I mean, usually when you're having a political pundit on for an interview, is it like it's standing debate? Is that like I don't know? Is that just how it works? I don't know. I don't watch enough uh interviews to know that. But
let's actually have the debate because the better idea will win. That's how my brain works.
Yeah, well, here's why. Because this is another form of gatekeeping. When Joe Rogan says, okay, you're cool. Dave Smith is cool. But Jake Shields, he's a Holocaust denier. That's not cool. That's dark and evil and real anti-Semitism. You hear that all the time. They say, are you like a Dave Smith guy or are you a real anti-Semite? Because you know what they say? If you're
so the criticism is that you're bringing on this representation of a very narrow of what I perceive to be the problem, which I agree with, which I know to be the problem, but you're not letting anybody else that gives a more comprehensive explanation as to what the problem actually is, and you're excluding them for the very reason that people that are in the mainstream exclude the surface level explanation as well. So if you have somebody like Dave Smith talking about, the Zionist lobby, things like that. Nick Fuentes would agree with that, right? But he's saying that there's a bigger problem that these people are not talking about. And so people like Joe Rogan, who have people like Dave Smith on, they're like, well, the Dave Smith part is okay, but we're not going to have like the deeper explanation, okay? We're going to keep this part because I believe it'll be good enough, right? But the other part is anti-Semitic, which is exactly what the people that reject the Dave Smith kinds say as a justification. And so that's kind of Nick's problem here. I don't think Candace is actually comprehending that. He's making a larger point that these are emblematic. These instances of bringing on these political pundits and these representations of the problem can be muddying the waters, right? And so I think that was his criticism, but he phrased it poorly. And again, I don't give a fuck because it's a medical conversation. It's so boring. A debate about the debate. It's just dumb.
real anti-Semite, you're out of the club. You don't get invited on the show. Piers Morgan won't have me on the show. He banned me. Tim Pool banned me. Joe Rogan banned me. And it's like, wait a second. So, clearly some people are able to go on these shows and express some form of the view, which is, again, like what you're saying, there's this Israel lobby. But if you go and say, you know what, 6 million, I'm not buying it. I think this is a political narrative. I think it's atrocity propaganda serving a fifth column. Suddenly they say, well, that's real anti-Semitism. We want nothing to do with that. You remain outside. And so, and look, it's not to me about, people then say, oh, well, you're envious. Look, I love doing my show. I love doing what I do. I want the real truth to prevail. And there's this concept of a limited hangout. This is a CIA tool, and I'm sure you've heard of it, but for your audience that maybe hasn't, when they believe that disclosure is inevitable, a secret, a taboo, hidden narrative that they don't want to get out, when it's inevitable that it is going to go out, what they will do is they will leak out some of the truth. The public is so enamored with the new information, they go no further, and they actually don't get to the critical details. And I think that, we're basically at that point with the Israel lobby and the Jewish topic. Clearly something is going on.
So you're just distrusting, and that's fine to say that you're distrusting.
No, well, I'm distrusting naturally.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fine to, and you are correct, by the way, that there are these operations where they do these limited hangouts. I'm very aware of that. That is true. And sometimes I have that in my mind when I'm watching something. I'm like, this feels like a limited hangout. Like they're not really kind of getting to the nucleus of the conversation. But I just really disagree with you about like just Dave is just guilty and condemned simply because he's born
I didn't say
Ashkenazi.
because he's Jewish.
Well, on the clip, I think you just went like Dave Jew, and it's like, what does it matter? Dave
I'm
Joe
sick of the
Rogan not
tokenism.
Jew.
I'm sick of the
But,
tokenism.
okay, and I'll tell you another reason why I disagree with that. And we can move on from Dave Smith because I like him, and I'm whoever I like. I don't really care. To adapt my opinions on the basis of yours, but I also just in general feel like I was that person for BLM. And I'm genuine. I was totally genuine. And that was kind of my wake up call. BLM, I didn't really accept the victim narrative. Maybe a little bit like you, naive, walked into it like, oh, I'm just not going to support this thing. And I don't really want to be a Democrat. And then I dealt with the full weight of an attempted cancellation by the left at first. And kind of like she's the token for the right. And people saying, well, they're only platforming her because she's a black person that agrees. And to some degree, maybe that's true. Like, obviously, like there is an element of tokenism, but I'm saying what I believe.
Sure.
I was saying what I believe.
And I don't doubt his sincerity. I don't doubt his sincerity at all.
So why problematize it? That's what I'm trying to get to. So it's then he's out there having to fight amongst these pro-Israel people. He's fighting the same
36?
Zionists that we are on the topic of Israel. And on
What
top
the
of that,
fuck?
he's got to deal with Nick Fuentes talking trash about him because he's like, well, this is just, who cares? If he can't help who he is. I couldn't help but I was black and disagreed with BLM. I'm just black and disagree with BLM,
Well, here's the reason why. It's a little bit irritating because Dave Smith, for all the flack that he's getting, he remains on YouTube. He's been on YouTube the whole time. He remains on Twitter. He's been on Twitter the whole time. He has bank accounts. He has payment processors. And now that people are waking up about Israel, they want to invite a Jewish person on to tell us we're not real anti-Semites, we're not Holocaust deniers, but maybe something's wrong with Israel. And here I am, having been banned on YouTube, been banned by banks, every streaming platform, all of it condemned, life destroyed, and people still are gatekeeping me and saying, you're a real anti-Semite. And I'm saying, well, obviously we didn't come far enough. So I don't doubt his sincerity. He's a big boy. He doesn't mind that I'm trash talking him. And I still consider him a friend, even though I've been critical of him. But we have to go a little bit further than to say something's up with the Zionists or Israel. It's not Israel. It is the Jews. And I think that Dave Smith, being a Jewish libertarian, I don't think he's ready to go that far. I don't think he is.
I want to know what you mean by that. So just so we're clear, is your perspective that if people don't platform you, it's because they don't want to go too far?
It may be that they aren't that far ideologically, but then that's my job to push them farther. And that's why I say it. That's why I say,
But maybe they just disagree with you.
You're a good
But that's
example.
another thing.
Then
Maybe they
should have
just
me on the
disagree
show,
with you.
But I'm gatekept.
Okay, but if the more important, so for me, if like I care deeply about what's happening to the Palestinians, obviously, I've made a point to talk about that. And I very much see what you're speaking about, that there is this coordinated, very sinister movement. I think it operates on the left and the right, whether it's the ADL or APAC, the money is flowing to instantly cancel people, to get them fired. And it's vicious. I mean, it is dirty business. And to survive it's hard for most people to even survive it when they go through it because they're so smeared. It's like an effective tar and feathering. And for it to happen when you were 18 is ridiculous. But at the same time, if I'm going to use my platform to speak about that, I want to make sure that I'm hosting people that can explain that to people that otherwise may not even be aware of that.
Right.
So if you're going to host, why are you sitting this person down on your show? Well, because we're having a conversation about something that's important. I can either learn from that person, right? Or I think that this person can teach something to my audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I were to host you and that was the clip that's coming out, do you think people are going to go, yeah, that just made me realize here I am just believing that we should, I'm a normal conservative like you. You said you were 18. I like these people. And the first thing I hear Nick Fuentes say is, Dave, they're not going to think that you're a good person.
This is concern trolling. I'm sorry,
No,
but this is tone policing and this is concern trolling.
It's not. No, it's not.
It is
it's
absolutely.
not tone policing. Hold up. Let's back it up because I'm going to let you speak. It is not tone policing. What I am saying is that you just went through the fact that you genuinely were coming up, that you were a conservative, you genuinely liked Ben Shapiro, you genuinely thought these things. So that wasn't you would not look back on yourself and say, well, that I was problematic. You just would be like, that makes sense.
Right.
And I'm saying to you that the majority of people have that perspective. You don't have to assign an evil motive. You get into something because you believe it. That's it. It's just that simple.
Okay.
And if you're then going to have somebody who's condemning them, what are we learning? If you're just going to say, you're this, you're that, it's like you've forgotten yourself. Like some people just aren't there wherever you are.
Okay, but I missed the part where I condemned him. I missed the part where I condemned him. And I talked about the Dave Smith part repeatedly. And by the way, you're mixing it up and saying, well, if people watch the show, what are they going to think if they see that clip?
I'm just trying to say to you, why would someone maybe say,
Can I talk? Can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Come on.
Go ahead.
I mean, so, look, I'm a funny guy. I'm bombastic. I'm provocative. That's part of it. And you know what? You can concern, troll, and tone police about, whether
Not tone police. I wouldn't have you on if I'm tone policing and playing
Dave
your clips.
Smith Jew this. We're laughing during the clip.
Yeah,
you and I are laughing.
funny.
It's funny. And
I'm
that's
laughing at you making fun of me. I don't mind you making fun of me.
Yeah, and I don't
I'm
mind
chill.
you making fun of me if you've ever done that. I mean, and I'm chill too.
No, I don't care. I'm not, like I said, I told you. It's funny.
I like that about you because I think that you're hardcore. I think we're kind of similar in that way. We don't have thin skin. So I appreciate that about you. And I know that Dave Smith is the same way. And I said on that show and other shows, I like him. I think he's a good guy. And I agree with you. I think he's sincere and I respect him. And I think he's a good person, actually.
He is.
But I do think that we disagree. And to the extent that I'm critical of the situation, it's not a personal directed at him. I know maybe it comes across that way or it sounds like that to you, but I've said it repeatedly on my show and that's not the only time I talked about it. I said the problem is this idea, and again, intentional or not, that we need permission from a Jewish person sitting there so that we're not real anti-Semites to talk about the issues. And I also disagree with Dave Smith on the extent of it. Now, maybe he fundamentally disagrees. I'd love to talk to him about it. That'd be fine with me. But it does come from a place of disagreement. I'm not condemning him.
I think he genuinely just disagrees with you. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to say when I say don't internet too hard, is that sometimes you can assign a conspiracy where it's just not, that's not the motive. Like for me, I just wanted to have...
I want to give you guys the full interview on an analysis of it, but I'm very tempted to just skip another 20 minutes of this because it's just going to go in circles. Jesus, man. This meta conversation thing, people in politics especially, they need to stop having these meta conversations. It's incredibly painful for the viewer. At least for me, is anybody else fucking feeling painful about this? It's just psychological torment, psychological torture that I have to listen to Candace Owens talking about. You should have said it this way, and Nick, just bickering about this stupid shit. It's can we... The meta conversation thing is fucking dead. Okay, stop. It's insane. It just reduces the quality of any debate or conversation to nothingness. A meta conversation thing, it's gotta go.
David, my show has had him on before, and I think he's great.
I noticed women do this more than anybody. Women do this more than anybody. It's just an observation that I've had. The way that you say this, the way that you talk, the way you represent that, people are not going to be convinced by you saying this in this way. Oh,
and I like his stuff. He's one of my favorite follows. That's it. I don't even think about the fact, well, he's a Jew, so let me have him on to tokenize the situation. I don't care. I just like him, Yeah. And in terms of why I could try to appreciate where if somebody's trying to wake somebody up to something, you could dump, I guess, a bucket of ice on someone when they're sleeping and wake them up. Or you could kind of say, okay, are you starting to, with my sisters, we have this debate right now about me being a Catholic, my sisters are not Catholic. I don't need to be like, you must understand why the Catholic faith is right. And it's I got there, they're not there yet. Chill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Here's where I was. My sisters were Democrat when I got into politics. And we've always kept a sense of humor about things. So it never became this toxic name calling stuff. Well, it was, but it was with a sense of humor about it. My sisters would be like, have fun at your Klansman rally. And I'd be like, cool, because I'd ask her to watch my cat. But the idea that I think that at the moment that I recognize something or at the moment that I become something, everyone else must therefore become that thing. I think that's asinine. I do.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that. Look, my show is my platform and I say what I feel about the situation and my audience is already there with me. I'm doing a show. And by the way, I don't even do it for the audience. I say what I say. I said it 8 years ago when it really wasn't popular. I said it 5 years ago when it was a little more popular. I'm saying it now. And and that's the difference, I guess, is this is a common critique of me and my audience. People say, well, are you being tactful? Are you being strategic? These kinds of things. I'm not setting plays. I will acknowledge I'm impulsive. I am bombastic. I'm out there. I'm a maniac, but my job is to put the truth out there. I am the bucket of ice cold water and I'm dumping it on people, and some people are going to get it and some people it's going to take them longer. I'll let other people set the plays. I'll let other people kind of do the breadcrumbs and do this incremental approach. Me, I kind of figured it out. I was off to the races from the beginning, and I just want to cut to the chase and get to the most fundamental part of the idea. And so, that's why some people don't like me, granted. But I think the big picture is that I have been suppressed for 10 years, because we could sit here all day long and say, were you mean to this one? Were you mean to that one? Was this out of pocket? The fact of the matter is, I have been more censored than anybody for 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's the real reason. So, and
But you're not still being censored. I'm just trying to provide feedback.
I am, though.
Provide feedback to what you just said in that clip. Like, why wouldn't they have me on their platform? I'm not tone policing. Go on your show, say whatever you want. Actually, I would make the argument that you're kind of tone policing our shows by saying, why won't they? Look, whatever. I'm just saying, don't assign evil motive where there just might not be one. Like,
I don't think I am.
Okay,
I was
fine.
mad that you wouldn't. Well, you don't believe me, but I was mad that you're saying, okay. You're mad that. Well, I was mad that you wouldn't have me on the show because, look, I stand you so hard on Twitter. I was Candace Owens, and the Groypers were there for you for Daily Wire, and they wanted the collab so bad last year, and you kept saying, "Well, we'll do it. But then you said,
What are you talking about? Let's back this up.
Okay.
Because I do want to get to this. This is actually something that I find to be very funny. First and foremost, because I don't know what a groiper is. Okay. This is, and I will give you credit where credit is due. You have managed to infect the brains of 40-plus-year-old men. And that is actually, I think, the most compelling part about you. Is I watched as I was coming up in my career, and I will say I've had 4 kids in the last few years. I don't pay attention to, I think you were on Cozy TV.
Yes.
You were banned everywhere. I only know that because 40-year-old men were obsessively asking me to come out and condemn you. I'll name one of them, Seth Dillon of the Babylon Bee. He lives in a groiper simulation. And I'm just, to me, interested in the idea that the 18-year-old kid who's been banned everywhere, and you have to jump through the hoops to watch him on this obscure cozy.tv, has managed to completely send you mad. That's fascinating to me. Credit where credit is due. The Groypers, are truly living in the minds of neocons. There's no question about it, okay? So for me, genuinely, I didn't watch your content. I gotta tell you, you're not for moms. I'm very into the anti-vax stuff. I'm not tucking in at night after 5 days a week of a show and 4 kids being like, what's on Cozy TV? What's Nick Fuentes saying over at Cozy TV?
You're not?
No,
Oh,
I am not. And so the first time that I started seeing your clips was kind of at the same moment that I got fired, because at the same time-ish is when you got put back on Twitter. And I am active on Twitter, and I'm seeing clips here and I'm seeing clips there. And I did see the clips of you speaking about the Christ is King scenario, some which were hilarious, just kind of getting into the theology of it. And I'm starting to go, okay, I'm kind of getting this Nick Fuentes thing, especially when Jeremy Boring, then the CEO of Daily Wire, hosted this Christ is King audio live. And that was the first time I ever heard your backstory. So I genuinely was so, I guess, not blind to the Groyper movement, but how influential you were, that these people, as Jeremy admitted in that audio, were watching your show, which was on an app that I had never even heard about. So I want to give credit where credit is due. But your strategy of, I'm going to go on my show and call this person out for not having me on the show when you didn't ask to come on the show, and you had a line of communication because of some legal stuff that was happening in the background where I was asking you to do a decent thing and tell the truth about the fact that we didn't have this relationship that I think some people thought that we had going on in the background, a political relationship or strategizing together. So I just think it was ridiculous. I'm like, if you wanted to come on the show, why didn't you just send a big boy message and say, hey, Candace, we should collab? And that's what I mean when I say I think you internet too hard. You think the way to get that is to go, Groyper war, Groypers, go at, and I am the exact opposite demeanor. If you do that, I will definitively not have you on the show. And the irony is, we had the discussion. So I think I messaged you and I was like, what's the deal with you on YouTube? If I have you on the show, we were just kind of getting set up here. Are you allowed to? And you answered and said, I don't know. You said, some people have had me on, some people have gotten hit. And I'm like, okay, well, we're still trying to figure this thing out. And the next thing I know, you've launched a Groyper war. And I'm going, if you think this is the last strategy you should possibly take if you ever want to get anything with me, I don't respond to like anonymous accounts on, like, I'm sorry, I'm not 13. I have toddlers at home. Like, I get the, like, I want. And I say to them, if you would like something, you need to use your manners. You need to say, can I please have? And thank you. And that's how I felt you were kind of executing this request, was in a really immature way. It was just immature.
Well, I think you're kind of starting in the middle of the story, because when he left the Daily Wire, everybody was on Twitter and in your live chat and in the comments saying, we want the collab with Nick Fuentes. And you said in the live chat, we're going to do it. We have the screenshots in the live chat for your show. You said, we're going to do the collab.
Meta conversation.
I have the screenshots, so, you know, if this goes up, we'll post it.
Are you potentially speaking about like a live chat that was going and you think that I responded to somebody saying?
Your channel said, we're going to do the collab.
Okay, maybe are you talking about YouTube?
Yes.
Genuinely, I don't know what you're talking about, but we can add the screenshot. We can add it because I definitively do not remember saying we were going to do the collab. Even if I indicated I did reach out to you and say, what's the deal? Because we were talking about, like I said, we were like, we should get him on.
Yeah.
But then in between me saying we should get him on and you saying, I don't know about YouTube, suddenly there was like, we're launching a war on her.
Yeah, well,
and then I was like, no,
let's talk about that beginning of the story, because you know, people were pushing for the collab, and there's a screenshot where you say, yeah, we'll do the collab. And this was like a period of...
Yeah, I've seen the screenshot. It's essentially, this is the thing though. This is why it's easy to be misconstrued, because it's in a live chat of like, what, 10,000, 20,000 people? Is that about the amount of viewership that a Candace Owens live stream, takes? I don't know. Something like that. And so in the live chat, the chats are going off, and then there's a chat asking, are you going to collaborate with Nick Fuentes? And it could totally be possible. It could totally be the case that Candace Owens was replying to somebody else in the chat, and her text appeared after somebody asking, are you going to collaborate with Nick Fuentes? Because she just says yes. Like, there's just yes, that's it. There's no real indication. I mean, it could possibly be the case that Nick's right. I mean, it could also possibly be the case that Candace is right, but it's fucking boring. That's the bottom line. It's boring. Nobody when I meant contentious, this is not what I meant. I meant like strong disagreements about like politics. This is just so fucking boring. The meta conversation. Why didn't you say it this way? Why didn't you talk to me that way? Why didn't you? Shut up. Shut the fuck up, bitch.
Any months.
Okay, fact checking Nick Fuentes again here. So he sent us two screenshots.
Oh my god.
Where he says that I said we'll do the collab, and I do not believe these screenshots say that. So these are the ones that he sent us. Here's number one. He doesn't show us what I was responding to, but we can guess because I said, yes, I would talk to Nick. Why not? So that makes me believe that the person probably said, would you ever have Nick on the show? Or would you ever speak to Nick Fuentes? And I said, yes, I would talk to him. Why not? I never said we were collabing. And then this is the second screenshot that Nick sent us. It reads, I will literally speak to anyone on my podcast. My podcast is not for crybabies who hate speech. So I'm not certain how he could have interpreted that as I confirmed I was doing a collab with him. But those are the screenshots he submitted. So I will allow you guys to interpret that yourself. Back into the conversation.
Oh, no, there's another screenshot. It's just like, are you going to collaborate with Nick Fuentes? Are you doing a collaboration with Nick Fuentes? And then she says yes to me. Either way, it doesn't matter because it's boring.
And then you go and do a Twitter space with Dan Bilzerian, and there was I think one of those Jewish guys was on there. I forget his name. Mike something Myers was on there. Andrew Meyer was on there.
Oh, yeah.
You brought him on there. I think Andrew Tate was on there. People said in your replies, get Dave Smith, get Dave Smith. You said he's invited to everything I do. All the replies said get Nick Fuentes on there. I'm not banned on Twitter. And so, and here
but
was
that was after you had launched this, like...
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, I think it was.
I don't think it was. But either way, here's the point. It just felt like you were making excuses, which was, oh, well, it's the YouTube thing. Oh, well, it's the legal thing. If it's YouTube, we could have done it on my platform.
You know the legal thing was real. I still can't speak about what that legal thing was, but that was very real. That was very real. And I was...
Is it not in effect now? Has something changed?
not for a discussion for another time, but the point being is like, that wasn't a joke. You know that wasn't a joke. You were on the phone with my lawyers.
I know, but it
And
was a
the
legal thing.
accusations that were being thrown at me were just inaccurate in regarding that legal thing. And so when I reached out to you to ask you to just clarify that this wasn't real, whatever it was, I was asking you to just do a decent thing. Like that was not on a, okay, well, let's collab or not collab. It was
Yeah.
like, hey, this is my real life. It's
And I
being
did.
impacted by something that I didn't do. But then you kind of, in a really crappy manner, spoke about that on your show, something that I was privately going through that is still lasting. Okay. I have a lot of stuff going on in the background. And I was just like, what kind of person is this? Like, like I'm fighting for my life. I'm being attacked by Zionists. I've just gotten fired. I have kids at home. I mean, at no point you just go like, and then you knew that I had some legal stuff, drama going on in the background. At no point you just go like, maybe she genuinely just like, or I'm just going to reach out to her and say, hey, we're already talking. Do you want to maybe collab down the future? That's the adult thing to do. And going to your point, when I said he's always
So this lady just wanted to have Nick Fuentes on before. She was open to having Nick Fuentes on before to talk about politics, to talk about. And she's having him on now, and all that she's talking about is her arguing with him over why she didn't have him on earlier. It's almost like it's funny. It's almost like she's controlled opposition. Like even when she's having Nick Fuentes on for a conversation, she's only talking about the way they're talking about the conversation. It's insane. I'm just bored of these two dumb fucks talking.
invited to anything I do. I literally had not invited
An
Dave Smith. I
hour.
would just,
Yeah, I know.
Another
I had not
hour and
invited him. I
12
was just
minutes
saying,
left.
if
It's
he wants to
insane.
jump
This is
on
like
and
the
say,
longest debate review that I've ever done in my fucking life. Holy shit. This is the longest I've sat down and concentrated for a debate review. Usually when I do these things, I'm like, I can't stand to listen to this thing all the way through, but I'm just hoping there's just some level of visceral hope that she's gonna shut the fuck up and we can actually get to the topics.
me on, I'll let him on. That's
Okay,
it.
yeah. Well, and here's the thing. I think that you can't have your
And here's the thing. I mean,
cake and eat it too, okay? Because you also
Okay.
went and said,
okay.
I've never spoken to Nick Fuentes before in my life. But that was a lie.
Okay, but
Or you didn't know, but we had spoken before.
okay, yeah, let's clarify that. Yes, I was wrong that there was that one conversation you pointed out about when my husband was working for what was the app called? Parlor app.
Parlor. Oh, I'm sorry. So there were two, actually.
Yeah, but like, I mean, come on, Nick. The verse is like, we had this long relationship.
Okay, but we can't play this game now. We
What
can't play
game?
this because you can't then get on my case and say, well, look, I'm just going through a lot and I have this crappy stuff going on.
No,
And then
I'm
it's
just
like,
saying,
wait,
like,
but
That's funny. That's funny.
I don't
you're
know
a
about the
crappy person
screenshot,
because
but
you-
I forgot about the conversation
Nick,
and
that
the
was
other
from
one.
years ago. I mean, okay, yes, okay, you're right. At first, I there was a conversation that you can read it
It's
live.
convenient.
Well, we should throw it up. Let's throw it up and post so people can read what you're okay. Like back in 2019, what is it, 18, 19? There was a communication.
And then in 2022, during the Kanye thing.
Yes,
during
and I've always been
A24.
honest. I've talked about that many times. That was the
No.
first time I remembered us having a conversation was the Kanye stuff. So when I was saying the first time I spoke to him was over the Kanye thing, and I've been very honest
You
about
said that after, because first you said we had never spoken. And then I insinuated, oh, maybe that's not true. And then you said, oh, we talked during Ye.
I can legitimately tell you that that's factually you're very wrong because I had to confront that because of some legal stuff that was going on. And I was very open about the fact that I had a conversation with you when you were hanging out with Ye.
What is this
you
legal
could talk about
thing
that open.
she had a comment? What kind of legal case is this? What the fuck is going on?
Right now, I couldn't care less. But the point is that what was the difference in what we're talking about is a communication about a certain situation versus like Candace and Nick had some like background relationship
Sure,
and we're
okay.
coordinating. That's just not true, And so that was what I was trying to dispel because people were very seriously creating an insane conspiracy theory
Mhm.
that I was coordinating with you. It was insane. All I can say to you is that retrospectively it was insane. And so if I forgot one communication about Parlor, you are correct. I went and checked and I was like, yeah, no, he's right. I told him that my husband was not working, I think for like Google I don't know what you thought was happening, but it wasn't real. And I told you that. So I just kind of shut down some conspiracy that you were on. And then was the Kanye thing. And there were other people who genuinely believed that you and I were like in this communicative
Right.
relationship coordinating, like I'm working with the Grapers. And it was just, I don't know what to say other than it was really loony. These were coming from older men. And I realized that you were kind of very effectively getting to people.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, look, and you know, it was a long time ago now, it was a year ago. I didn't prepare the timeline in advance, but the way that I recall, you said we had never talked before. Then you said, well, we talked once during Yang.
Is it just going to be
Then we I believe that was the case, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Like I said, I don't have it in front of me, but it felt like
that's true.
I felt like
mad at me for this and that, because Ye was mad at me for a couple of days. And I said, please just tell him this. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
So our communication.
We talked about Milo, and then you vouched for me with Ye.
Yeah. And Milo and I
now you follow Milo on Twitter.
Yeah. Milo and I since have talked about it, because, and he respects the fact. That's why I said, I'm very honest. So you're not going to catch me here, Nick.
I'm not trying to catch you. You're trying to lecture me.
No, you can talk. I want you to be as open as possible about this, because I just think that there has been so much crap that's been said that's just untrue. Yes, the person was Milo. I wasn't going to identify him, but Milo and I have since talked about it because he recognizes that I was just concerned about Ye.
Mm-hmm.
It's the reason I communicated to you is because the person that I knew was not you. It was not Milo. It was Ye. And I was concerned, obviously, with everything that was going down. He had been at my house and things were going down. I was just concerned, and I wanted to make sure that I was protected.
Autism attack if they continue talking about this any longer. Do I actually have this? It's so fucking annoying.
Him because
you don't understand how autism inducing this is. This is like I'm going to have an autism attack if I listen to
about
this
that, and said, look, he understands that was my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, getting into the movement, I just like you when I first kind of was coming in, I was reading a lot of Milo's blogs, a lot of his writings up at Breitbart, and he kind of turned the lights on for me in terms of feminism and the BLM movement. So we never really had, I would say, the same exact thing. I didn't really know Milo. I knew his writing, I knew his work, but I didn't know him. So I just don't understand what I did wrong by saying that I don't know you. What do you want me to say?
What was
Make
it?
it up?
Well, once again, we're kind of massaging the words. You said we never talked. I know nothing about him. I don't know him. When we had talked, and then you went and changed the statement and said, "Oh no, we talked one time."
You got to pull it up.
Okay,
Come on, you got to pull it up now.
We can't. I don't have it on me. I didn't know I was coming in. You said it wasn't an ambush. I thought we were talking about Iran.
You brought it up, but that's fine.
You brought it up. You wanted to litigate the beef. I'm happy to do it. I don't have the receipts prepared, but we could do it.
Perfect. I do not know Nick Fuentes. I don't know you. But you already know that. What I do know is that everyone can see what you guys are doing to me. Your pattern is well established.
There were other statements besides this tweet.
And the world is waking up to it. My crime is having stood up for myself against your network of smears. I'm responding to the ADL and saying I don't know you. I didn't know you.
But that's not the only statement. You said stuff on your show, and there were other tweets.
It was on my show.
I don't have it on me.
Okay,
if you want to come back and we can do a debate about it,
we're not going to do a debate about it. I'm just saying just so everyone can.
You are doing a debate about it. You've literally poisoned the entirety of this conversation, so that it has become reducible to being absolutely not fruitful for anybody that is listening to the conversation. I mean, it's literally. It's like I'm forcing myself. Like I came here with excitement. I was like, yeah, this is going to be an interesting conversation, these two. It's like she's taking the life force. She's taking all will out of the viewer. There is zero will to live left. And this does seem like an ambush. Please just stop.
This is pre-recorded, so I'm just going to say if
it's like she's trying to get something off her chest. Like she's here to vent to Nick Fuentes about how she's like by what he said about her. Because he called her fake. Like he's saying that she's not an honest actor, pretending like she doesn't know him, and so she's like, possibly controlled opposition, or something like that, something to that kin. And so she's just trying to get it off her chest. She's just trying to be like, no, I'm not. You're Ryan. You suck. It's like, this is what you did for this conversation, for this interview. This is not an interview. It's a fucking interrogation. Who wants to listen to that?
You do go home and find a clip of me saying something that you believe was lying, then I'm happy to share it because I don't lie to people. It's just not something that's like in my DNA. I would rather just tell the truth and deal with the consequences. So I had two separate communications with you. This is a victory. Short term, though, in discussing Parler, he said that I denied that I had contact with him. This is the proof that he sent us right here. You can see that I tweeted on November 25th, 2022.
Yeah, I've never in my life been in contact with Milo Yiannopoulos or Nick Fuentes. Yeah, so she just conceded this is absolutely false. So
I tweeted, I have never in my life been in contact with Milo Yiannopoulos or Nick Fuentes.
we're
This
gonna
is
try
not
to
a personal
justify.
shot at either of them. That is simply the truth. I met Milo twice, both times at the David Horowitz Freedom Center, where we were both invited as speakers years ago. As Nick insinuated, this was technically not true because I did have public contact with Nick that
Yeah, but the implication is that you've never interacted with this person, and thus like it basically it's like it deburdens you from having to justify yourself to people that are criticizing you for your relations. It's such an ideology that's shared by people like Nick Fuentes, right? You're just trying to deburden yourself by saying something that is obviously false. So, like, it is completely reasonable for somebody to read that as, hey, well, this person is lying because it's convenient for them. Because it is convenient. Like, if we're talking about incentives, we have reason to believe that this is just like a lie. But anyway, it's just so, oh, please, please, please.
Were a couple of groypers asking these types of questions. Then the third day, New Hampshire, same story. And I remember doing a show covering the latest batch of clips. It turned into a thing. We were covering them on the show every night, the clips of these questions. And at that time, groyper was a meme. It was like Pepe the Frog. And there's a few variations. There's Pepe, Marv, Apu, and groyper was one of them. And groyper's like a big cartoon frog.
Why is it named Groyper?
I don't know.
I literally don't know what Groyper means.
It came from a Twitter account called That Groyper. He just named it Groyper.
Okay, so it just doesn't mean anything.
No, yeah, it was technically people will start to ask these questions. So the following day, he did another event, I think, in Iowa.
What the fuck is wrong with
Once again, there were a couple of groypers asking these types of questions. Then the third day, New Hampshire, same story. And I remember doing a show covering the latest batch of clips. It turned into a thing. We were covering them on the show every night, the clips of these questions. And at that time, groyper was a meme. It was like Pepe the Frog. And there's a few variations. There's Pepe, Marv, Apu, and groyper was one of them. And groyper's like a big cartoon frog.
Why is it named Groyper?
I don't know.
I literally don't know what Groyper means.
It came from a Twitter account called That Groyper. He just named it Groyper.
Okay, so it just doesn't mean anything.
No, yeah, it was technically called Easter Toad was the drawing, the proprietary drawing. But then some Twitter users started calling it Groyper. And at that time, people would personalize the groypers and make them an avatar. So, they'd have different themes and different personalities. And groyper became synonymous with like a far right, like retard. Like a groyper was like, this guy is painfully, obnoxiously far right.
Okay.
And so I said on my show, imagine you're Charlie Kirk. You're standing up there on the stage sweating, and you have a line of groypers asking you questions about the USS Liberty and dancing Israelis. I said, what must be going through his head? And ever since then, they took the groyper standing upright, because the famous picture is he's sitting down like this. But they took a picture of the groyper standing upright, and there was a meme at the time of Alex Jones walking down an alleyway, and they copy-pasted a bunch of Alex Jones. They said it was an army of Alex Jones. And so someone took that meme and they did it with groypers. They had an army of groypers marching down the alley. And I said, that's us. That's the groypers lining up to ask Charlie Kirk a question. So that's the origin of the name.
Okay, interesting. I was always wondering, I'm like, what does groyper actually mean? And so it's a lot of people that have these anonymous accounts. And like I said, we'll show a clip of it, but I thought it was very interesting because it was, I guess, questions that I hadn't really grappled with, which is, I'm on stage, I'm saying that I'm a Christian, and yet I'm touring with somebody who is a homosexual married man. How do I reconcile that? And rather than kind of getting the answer, and I think I particularly remember one clip with, what is his name? I'm totally blanking here. It's a black army vet. I know his name.
Smith.
Rob Smith. It was a moment with Rob Smith. And I think somebody shouted down the person and said that they were homophobic. Like the question is homophobic. And at that moment I went, yeah, you can't do that. You got to actually answer the question. There could be an answer, but we can't be like the left and just calling people names because we don't maybe want to confront that there is some substance to this question.
Mm-hmm.
But then you guys kind of, or maybe it sounds like it did start as an online movement. Who are the groypers behind the scenes? Do you have communication with these people? They're real, obviously they're real human beings. My point is that, like, is this movement, like, you guys are on a group chat and you know these individuals? Can we get a demographic? Are they older? Are they younger? Who are the groypers?
Well, they are real human beings. They're all young white men. Or there's other men too. I mean, some of them are Hispanic, some of them are black, some of them are Jewish for that matter. But they're mostly young men, college age, Generation Z, some of them even high school aged.
Okay.
And all of them very Christian, very Catholic also. They're fans of the show. You know, a lot of people say have this cult-like following. People watch the show and they adopt the political viewpoint, the religious viewpoint. And so they're basically far-right, pro-America, Catholic, at that time, big Trump supporters and young guys.
Okay. All right. We have to watch another Nick Fuentes clip. I think we should definitely watch. Let's watch the first one that you showed me, Skylar.
Why is it that Candace Owens will interview Harvey Weinstein before she'll talk to me?
So true.
Am I really that
so glad you agree
bad?
with yourself.
People said when Candace Owens split with Daily Wire, people begged her to do a collaboration with me. They said, talk to Nick Fuentes. You stole all his talking points. Talk to Nick Fuentes. You get all your ideas from him, all your slogans. He was a martyr. He made the sacrifices that made it popular for you to do this. She said, oh, I can't because I'm on YouTube. But I also can't have him on my website because of some lawsuit.
That's so crappy to me. That part's really crappy to me. I have to say,
are we
watching
doing
it
this
back,
again?
no, I do want to say, we don't have to get into it, but that's crappy to me because it was like, I don't know. I just think that I try to do a really good job of being a human being offline. You know what I mean? And if people are going through stuff or whatever, and that was real, like, that's not like, oh my God, like she's trying to be a victim. It was very real. My life was kind of, you saw, it was thrown up in the air, but we don't need to focus on that. But I do want to get to the point. Do you actually believe that I was getting all my ideas from you? Like, do you actually believe that I was watching Cozy TV? Because then somebody showed me a clip of you saying the same thing, because I guess you said in the same week, or you said last week, I was talking about this. Now this week, Candace is talking about it. And it was pertaining to the PBS documentary, The Savage Peace, which was about the German genocide that took place after the war had ended. And that documentary opened up my eyes a lot to the fact that we had only been told kind of one strand regarding World War II. And I told my audience they should watch it. And there was a clip of you kind of suggesting that I got that from you. So did you actually believe that I had gotten that from you, or that I was watching your show and stealing your ideas?
Not that one. I don't know what that's all about. The
Okay.
German thing. But look, I mean, you left Daily Wire with the whole Christ is King, America first. For years, that's what I was known for. Now, if you want to say you never heard of me until a couple of years ago, or
No, I heard of you in 2019.
You said earlier though that you didn't really watch anything or know anything until about a year ago.
Yeah.
If that's what you say, okay, that's fine. But it'd be a pretty stunning coincidence. And I will say I heard from other people. I'm not going to say who, but I heard from a mutual friend. He watched my show back in 2020. Maybe that person's lying. I don't know that, but I'd heard that from multiple people. So.
You can name the person, because I'm telling you. So, and I'll ask you this question again. So you said Christ is king. So that's very interesting. So you think that any person that says Christ is king?
Oh no, I didn't say that.
Okay, because I actually do want to understand this. I'm genuinely pushing back here, because I was very confused by this. I'm like, Ye just named his whole album Jesus is King, right? Or 2 albums ago was Jesus is King. It was definitely a moment, a cultural zeitgeist that had this rapper to come out and start singing about Christ, like he did early on when he did the Jesus Walk stuff. And I was just like, does Nick actually believe? I'm like, I genuinely was not watching your show. It's the only thing I can tell you.
Okay.
I have friends that were, I will definitely say, male men between the ages of like 30 and 40 are watching your show.
Yeah.
And I would say 40 and beyond, like I just said, are watching your show. I would imagine you have a very male, internet savvy audience. I am terrible at the internet. Like, I mean, it is embarrassing. I'm basically a grandma when it comes to the internet. My husband thinks he's like, how are you a person that people watch the internet? You don't even know how to use the internet. I just don't love tech. Tech is not really my thing. I like to communicate. I'm a woman. I like to speak, but I don't really like to figure out how all this stuff works. And so once you got banned, I just didn't see, I wouldn't have seen your stuff. But then
Mhm.
as soon as you were back on Twitter, I started seeing your clips all the time because you started trending. Like
Right.
you were trending the day that you got let back onto X, you were trending. And I was like, okay, Nick is trending. Clips recently just were trending about you. So I think if you had been on X that whole time and you said, I mean, you're like, you've never seen my stuff, that would be a little ridiculous. But genuinely, like when you're starting a family and like as soon as I am done with the podcast, it got to be like straight back into mommy mode. It's just, I just don't think that many women are watching you. Is that fair?
Yeah, like I said, if that's what you're saying, then I believe you.
100% the truth.
Okay.
Genuinely didn't get any of my ideas from you, and then was being accused of getting all of my ideas from you. So obviously there must have been naturally something that was happening where what I was saying or what I was noticing, people were going, oh, Nick Fuentes has spoken about this already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those were like things that I was known for when we would disrupt Turning Point, which is where you worked at, or Daily Wire.
I saw the Groyper stuff.
Which you also worked there. They would go in chanting Christ is King, and they were the Groypers. And if you were aware of the Groyper War and Ye24 and me on Twitter last year,
I saw the literal clips of them asking questions that were going viral.
Okay.
They weren't chanting Christ is King. They were just the literal clips of them. And I thought it was smart. I think it made me challenge some of my ideas. So I will give you credit where credit is due, or the students that were asking those questions, credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times conservatives, we say things and we say them because everyone else is doing it. Same thing with the reason I think both of us started as being pro-Israel. It just was everybody else is doing it. It feels good. You are kind of young and excited about the ideas. And then you kind of go, oh, wait, something's wrong. And both of us kind of dealt with this punch in the face.
Right. Yeah, well, I was 18. You know what I'm saying? Different. I was 18. So, I was, I don't know that I was doing it because everybody else was doing it. I was doing it because that was just the first thing I read, because that was the stuff that was out there. And then, and then you went through it. I mean, and hey, and likewise, credit where it's due. Maybe I've been unfair to you. I don't know you, and like you said, we talked once and twice.
We finally got there.
No, but it's true. And this is the first time I've met you and I don't know you. So, and I'm willing to admit if I'm wrong, maybe I've been unfair to you. But for what it's worth, they did put you through the ringer, and I don't even need to tell you that. You know it, and everyone knows it, and it sucks.
I actually thought you were a Fed at one point.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here going, this makes no sense. I literally just am being punched in the face 1,000 times. Everyone's coming after me. What did I do? I tweeted the hashtag Christ is King and like my whole life is over. And now I kind of understand that it was because people were watching your show and they were.
Right.
And truly, people can just be ignorant. It's just, like I said, it's not female content. I would not describe you as like all the moms are lining up to watch Nick Fuentes.
Some moms love me.
Some moms love you, I'm sure.
Moms,
but
love
as a
show.
rule, I don't think that we're watching your show. And so I think it was kind of this thing that they definitely believe that there was some sort of coordination going on between you and I.
No, there wasn't.
It was, it sucked. I'm not going to lie. It was not an easy year last year. And so when on top of that, you start telling people to attack me.
I didn't really tell people to attack you.
Okay, fair. I might be misquoting there, but like they got the idea that they should start attacking me. I was like, okay, this guy must be working with the ADL, because the ADL had just attacked me. And then it was like 2 weeks later, you're attacking me, and people that watch your show are attacking me. And I'm just going, what the heck is going on in my life right now? Again, when you're in the moment, you can kind of believe something to be true. But I definitely thought that you maybe were like a total Fed.
Yeah, I heard that you heard that from Tucker. Is that true?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, because I heard that, and that was another thing.
I think a lot of people, by the way, have asked that question, like, is he a Fed? But I did not hear from Tucker, like, Nick Fuentes is definitely a Fed.
Well, Tucker is pushing that around. It's like a whisper campaign. He said that to Alex Jones. He said that to a lot of people, so.
Well, I thought I said it to people, because I was definitely saying, like, he's got to be a Fed, because what is he doing?
That was part of why I was, in particular, a little upset towards the middle of the beef.
Okay,
last year.
Fair, but I really did believe it. Because I was just, it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, what am I doing that everybody everywhere is upset with me?
Well, and I think suffice to say, unfortunately in this space, there is a lot of distrust, I think, on both sides, because there's so much deception and so much intimidation and bullying and these shady tactics that, when you don't know everybody, you really don't know what to make of everybody else. I'm an unknown quantity to you. I come from a different world. I'm a young man. I'm on the political outside. I'm on Cozy TV. You're an unknown to me. You're in the belly of the beast at Turning Point and Daily Wire. And I don't mean that to cast aspersions, but just to say we're coming at each other from completely different worlds. And I've always been in my world. You're sort of leaving that world and coming to these views. And I think there's sort of a mutual distrust and maybe misunderstanding, which is why it's good to sit down and chat, you know.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, you can say whatever you want on your show, but I would just encourage you to like maybe sometimes think people are just not where you're at sometimes. And I have to check myself at times. And I think
No one's where I'm at.
I think having the
I'm
exercise.
in the future.
Okay. You're with Ye in the future. Ye somewhere in the future.
I'm 5 years ahead. You
okay,
say,
so let me ask you some of these questions. So you do have ideas that there shouldn't be interracial marriage.
Mhm.
I've seen those clips. Can you explain why that is?
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's not that I don't think there should be interracial marriage. I'm Catholic, so as you know, it's not a sin to be in an interracial marriage or relationship. But I am racist, I would say. I believe in the races. I believe there are white people and black people and Hispanics and Asians, and I think that it's a core part of our identity. It's who we are. And there's like this conservative reflex to say, we're colorblind. Race doesn't mean anything. And, you know, Pat Buchanan said this. He said, it's not everything, but it isn't nothing. And I definitely lean more towards the latter, which is it really is a core part of who we are. Our culture, our heritage, our ancestors, our customs, all of it. You know, it's not that I don't think that two people can fall in love from different races. Of course they can. And they have throughout history. And the races have mixed throughout history and assimilated. But for someone like myself, I always say on my show, it's just my value. I want to marry someone that looks like me, that comes from a similar background, because I want my kids to look like me. I want my grandkids to look like me.
But sorry, I just want to make sure, did you say I'm a racialist or I'm a racist?
You know, for a long time, I would say I'm racialist.
Mm-hmm.
Now I just say I'm racist.
Okay, so when you say you're racist,
Mhm.
because these definitions get changed around, racist, you know, anti-Semitism gets expanded. What do you mean when you say I'm a racist? Because I think most people watching this would go, if you are a racist
Right.
in the traditional sense of the term, why are you on this podcast, right? Wouldn't you just go, you know what, Candace is black and therefore I don't want to speak to her.
Right.
Certainly not going onto your show and saying, why won't Candace have me on? That doesn't really seem to line up with
Right.
the traditional sense of the idea of racist. So
Yeah, and I'm using it. I'm being a little tongue in cheek. I mean, for the purpose of understanding, I'd say my views are I'm a racist.
Essentially, what he's saying is that, in accordance with the definition of the standard definition of what people consider to be a racist, which is actually not that rigorous, he's saying not be a racist. But I mean, if you're saying that a racist is somebody that hates somebody because of their race, hates a person because they are of a race that this person hates, that would be a racist. And I don't think you'd agree with that proposition that he'd be a
Racialist. But I do think that we need to deconstruct this idea of racism in the sense that, you know, look, you're black, I'm white. It is what it is. For my entire life, people have been walking around on eggshells about the subject of race, about white people being racist. Can I say this? Can I say that? Can I have this opinion? And me, I'm sort of, you know, Gavin McInnes said it like this. He said, you're kind of post-racist. You're sort of after this craze where everything was racist. It's sort of this recognition that we live in a heavily racial world. And, you know, look, sometimes we have racist feelings like I want to live in a white neighborhood.
mm-hmm.
I don't want to live in a black neighborhood. If they were all like you, obviously it'd be a different story. But when we think of a black neighborhood, we know what that means and why the property value is
But that's
cheap.
Black American. So this is why I want to understand this idea better, because, and this is kind of something my cousin has said, which I guess you could say is a racist statement, but she says that white people in America are the white trash of white people in the world, meaning that like there's a special category of uniquely that you don't see when you're dealing with like white Americans here, that if you went across to just, I mean, like Switzerland, you wouldn't see this version of a white person necessarily, or this, you maybe went to the continent of Africa, you don't see this version of a black person either. Like even if you went to like to the tribes out in Africa that still exist, they would be a far cry from a black American living in a neighborhood in Compton, right? So I'm trying to understand if you're actually, you think that it's all black people are like this, or if your world is kind of colored by this is what's going on in America. This has failed for 1,000 reasons. Welfarism has definitely, like, I mean, black people in 1940s, stand up. My grandfather, I talk about that denigration and the corrosion of culture. That's happening. White, black, whatever you want to name it, there is this intentional corrosion of culture. So do you think it's literally, well, this is just what a black person is when they come out? Or do you think that post welfare, LBJ, Great Society, this is what black Americans have become, and I have a right to respond to that and say that as a white man, I don't want to live there?
Well, you know, I think it's more nature than people would like to believe. You know, there's this classic tension of, is it nature, is it nurture, is it cultural, or is it intrinsic, is it racial? And I've always been on the latter side of this among conservatives, Conservatives like to say it's all culture. Black America is the way it is because of hip hop music and the Great Society and that kind of stuff. And I think the uncomfortable reality is a big part of it is intrinsic. One of the big arguments against the abolition of slavery in the 1860s is that, when Europeans colonized Africa, they hadn't discovered the wheel. There's no two-story buildings. There's no writing. There's no written language. Missionaries had to go to Africa in the last century and invent it for the African people because there's no recorded history. They didn't have writing.
So Egypt is not in Africa.
Well, Egypt is a different race. The Egyptians were not black.
Okay, but you said when they went to Africa, so I just want to...
The interior of Africa in the late 19th century, scrambled for Africa.
So we're now knocking Egypt out of Africa.
Well, Egypt is part of northern Africa, sub-Saharan Africa.
You said Africa, so I'm not trying to get a gotcha. I'm just responding. You're saying Africa.
Sure. Yeah.
It's in Africa. It's Egypt. It's kind of ridiculous to say there was no written language. Well, so I'm just trying to get you to
sure. Egyptians are not Africans.
If I'm not pushing back, the internet will. So
Egyptians are not racial Africans. When I say African, I'm saying sub-Saharan Africans.
Sub-Saharan, okay.
Black people because it is a different race. In sub-Saharan Africa, and Europeans did not penetrate that until the late 19th century. They didn't have any of this. To the extent that you have infrastructure in Africa, it's from the Muslims in the Sahel and the Maghreb in northern Africa, where the Arabs colonized. And then you had, Carthage and Egypt. You had ancient civilizations. But sub-Saharan Africa, they didn't have that. You take these people out of that land and put them here, and they're enslaved people. You let them free in a modern, liberal republic. They're not going to succeed. It's not going to go well for them. And that was one of the arguments against abolition. People said if you free them without any assimilation, without any kind of process for them to be acclimated, they're going to die. And that's exactly what happened. Many of the bottom 10% of the lowest IQ Africans just died off for generations. And it had pardon the expression, but it had a eugenic effect because over time, if the weakest are dying off, that's one argument for why blacks in America have a standard deviation higher IQ than the blacks in sub-Saharan Africa. So, so I do believe there is something intrinsic going on there. And what makes people uncomfortable about this is the idea that it's unchangeable. There's something about, and this is why I'm a Catholic, we do have an inherent desire for universalism. We do believe that there's a common humanity and a common human community and all of that. We hate the idea that we're born a certain way and we can never change. And that's just the way it is. And we even think about this in terms of, it's become not so popular these days to tell children you can be whatever you want to be. Because we know that's not the case. Some people are tall, some people are short, some people are smart, some dumb, some ugly, some handsome. That's why, by the way, incel-dumb is a big part of this also.
So you believe these are immutable characteristics that are assigned at birth?
I think that, yes.
For the most part.
Things like race, all those attributes are immutable and unchangeable.
But they have changed, just factually speaking, they have changed.
They change over time over the generations.
Okay, so then you don't think it's immutable. Because if this was an immutable characteristic.
Individual person.
Okay, so you're saying that if you are born at this space and time as a black person in America, here is the cards that you're dealt with and you can't change that over time.
Something like IQ does not change. No, it doesn't change wildly. It only changes genetically over. IQ is a big one, and that changes. That's a genetic trait. And so that can change over the generations, but not, you can't take an individual that's 75 IQ, which is the average in West Africa, and take them to 100.
So two dumb people can't produce a smart person.
I believe they can actually.
Yeah.
But.
So does that kind of debunk your.
No, because it's rare that happens, but IQ is a heritable trait, so it's unlikely that happens.
Okay.
And do you not recognize that there's group differences in IQ? Or?
I think that there's group differences, but okay. I wouldn't say, and the reason why I'm pushing back on this is because those perspectives that you hold, Thomas Sowell did a really good job debunking that. Mm. And I think the book is called Intellectuals and Race, and he opens up and makes a very sound argument that these characteristics are not immutable and that it can be your environment. And he kind of goes back and discusses who had the highest IQ and who now has the highest IQ. And so I just disagree with you fundamentally, but you have a right to have that perspective.
So you don't think that there's group differences on average between the races?
I think, just to be clear, I think there would be group differences if you took like we were talking about, an American versus somebody who graduates college in Europe. There'd be tremendous differences. I
Not
truly,
tremendous, but yeah, there
yeah,
would
there'd
be
be
slight
differences.
differences,
Yeah.
but you don't
So
think
I
that
think
racially there's differences between races.
I think, yeah, because we have huge differences culturally. So going to your point of saying, I don't want to live in a black neighborhood, well, neither does LeBron James when he gets money, right?
Right.
And there's a reason for that
Mhm.
because there is something that's happening culturally in Black America that's been going on for a very long time. But that thing, I would argue, didn't exist in.
What about in Africa and Haiti? I mean, they're killing and eating each other in Africa and Haiti. Everywhere where they are, you have these problems.
Yeah, I'd like to look into, and I'm pleading ignorant, but I've heard some things about what happened in Haiti and what the Clinton Foundation did there. So I think I'd have to look more into the history of Haiti to be able to push back on that at all. I don't think I agree with that.
What about all of Africa then? There's not one country in sub-Saharan Africa that's successful. Not one. They're all least developed countries. They're all failed states.
This kind of reminds me, and we could kind of flesh out this conversation together, and I'm not perhaps ready to have it fully, but I do remember going back to Dave Smith where he was conceding a point on, well, all of these other Middle Eastern countries, no, you wouldn't want to live there. You'd want to live in Israel. In my mind, I'm going, well, because you just keep bombing the crap out of them if they ever try to get ahead. I remember watching this clip of him saying that, going, why don't these countries get ahead? And
No, there are a lot of Middle Eastern countries they'd much rather prefer living in than fucking Israel. I guarantee you that. As a conservative, absolutely.
kind of going back in my mind to the Gaddafi speech where he was speaking essentially about, here's what we got to do in Libya to get ahead. Here's what we're going to do with the dollar, and we're going to be progressive and this and that. And they killed him. And then what happened to those Libyan refugees? Suddenly they're now pouring into, just like he said was going to happen, that they were now pouring into the European continent, and Europeans are complaining, who are these people? And so the question is, are we allowing, because I'm like, Africa's a pretty rich country. Like, why aren't Africans controlling the diamond trade? Who's taking all of the diamonds so that they can't control the diamond trade? And how long have these people been doing that, being essentially culture vultures? That's kind of the journey that I've been on now in terms of really trying to go back and look into history to see what's happened. And I never trust myself when I have a perspective now because I realize how much of my opinions and beliefs were shaped by the public school system. And so I don't think you're right. I think that there has been a very sophisticated effort to, just like you would say now, in terms of people that are intentionally attacking Anglo-Saxons. I'm just learning about that there were these books that were written we must genocide the Anglo-Saxons that were going on for a lot longer than I realized. History didn't begin with World War II, but I think it would take a lot of time to kind of unpack that.
Yeah.
Like, are we stopping people from getting ahead just because, I don't know?
That just being honest with you, that just sounds to me like a left-wing argument when they say, why don't these countries get ahead? Colonialism. You're a colonizer. It's like, okay, but when we got there, they had no development. When we got to Africa, they had no technological development.
So you think that even if we weren't at war, and sure, you could say that you think that's a leftist argument. I would only push back on that because I've learned so much about just like recent history that I didn't know. But you think that the Middle East, like if we had done nothing in terms of the Middle East, that they would just be savages and just be like, America didn't do anything it doesn't set anything backwards. And you're just like bombing a place.
Yeah, kind of. I think that we did set them back because when they don't have political order, it prevents development and investment and things like that. But, again, when you look at the antecedents of all these, the history didn't start, like you said, with World War II in the 20th century. There's a reason that European civilization created this enormous gap between them and everybody else. And I don't think it was that it was white supremacy or it was unfair or something like that. I think it's because.
Yeah, but I mean, the counter argument to this, I mean, there is a certain implication. I mean, Nick himself has said this before that, a lot of Middle Easterners, the reason it strays from development is because of IQ and shit like that. There may be differentials, sure. But you look back at, for instance, let's look at Iraq. For the time that Saddam was running the country, pretty economically sound. Education system was pretty sound. Quality of life for Arabs, at least. Well, for pretty much for Arabs only, because that was really its target. It's pretty good. Everything was pretty good before American intervention. All of these societies were great. They were great by standards by at least modern standards comparative to the United States and Europe of industrialization. they were pretty fucking great. So, the IQ argument it can possibly work with Africa. We can't really make that great of an argument with that for the Middle East. More particularly, um, countries like Iraq, Iran, and, certain neighboring countries, but mainly Iraq and Iran. So even a lot of North African countries.
Because Europeans are smarter. I think that on average, Europeans
So to
are
use your
smarter.
argument against you, that could be said about Ashkenazis. So if you're sitting here saying, I believe in some conspiracy and that it's a coordinated effort and blah, 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 they could look at you and say, that's a leftist argument. We're just smarter.
I think they are smart.
They
I
are
think
smart.
I think
Smarter.
they're
The
probably,
smartest.
well, I would say this. I would say they are probably as smart as the smartest white race, but the difference between the Jews and the white people is that they work as a team. And so if you look at, for example, things like transportation, white people invented every mode of transportation, railroad, cars, airplanes, all of it. When you look at fields of knowledge, white people invented all that, chemistry, anthropology, all that stuff. So white people really did give birth to the modern world in a major way. Jewish people are high verbal IQ because they're lawyers, they're rabbis. That's what a rabbi is a lawyer. That's what the Talmud is. It's a lawyerly back and forth. And so they're skilled at some things, and you're not wrong. They're extremely educated. They're extremely intelligent. They're a unique case where, 2% of the population overrepresented 2,000%. Are they 2,000% smarter? Answer is no. Because if you look at the standardized testing, the top scores in the high school standardized tests are almost all Asians in math and science. Asians aren't overrepresented in power. It's Jewish people. So Jewish people are not, proportionally as more intelligent as they are more overrepresented. And that goes to their real superpower, which is they're an organized minority. An organized minority will be the disorganized majority. As far as Africa is concerned, they didn't have the wheel. We got there, they didn't have the wheel. And it's unfortunate. It's not anything that people are happy about. I don't believe that makes Africans inferior. But I do think that explains their relative level of development that has been persistent over centuries, millennia.
Yeah, I'd probably just disagree with that point altogether. Okay, so then at least you are agreeing that Jewish people are just born smarter.
Yeah, they're very high IQ. I don't know that they're smarter than white people, but
that's what the results say.
That's what some results say. Depends on what results you're looking at.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you can make the same argument for fucking Middle Easterners or whatever. Like, you could make this, right? You could apply this to a lot of things. It's just really not that interesting of a conversation. It's like, are Jews smarter than white people? It's like, yeah, but it's like, that's not really the pertinent discussion that, in relation to race realism, that's not really the pertinent question. The pertinent question is usually about um, people that are below a threshold of normality, which is what Nick characterizes that, people like Black people, Hispanics, Middle Easterners, et cetera, right? It's not like don't really care that much about people
I thought
at threshold and have competitions in like IQ or like have differentials in IQ that are not exactly that significant. Like the European average IQ of a European would be 100, and that's like the threshold of average, right? So it's like comparing that with somebody that is like the average of an ethnicity like Ashkenazi Jewish, which is like what 105, 110, and Asians are like 105, 110 or something like that. That's like it's just not that interesting as the as comparisons with different ethnicities from below the threshold.
that was kind of the maybe I'm just reading it in one term, but I'm pretty sure that I read somewhere that like Ashkenazis have the highest IQs.
They like to embellish that, and there's different kinds of IQ. I think Chinese people probably have the highest IQ, Chinese or Japanese.
Different kinds of IQ, that doesn't mean anything. If you want to say that there are different kinds of intelligence, sure, that's correct. There are different kinds of intelligence. That's a bold claim, but there are not different kind of IQs. There are different kind of IQ tests. Some are more of a higher degree of accuracy and approximation than others, but there are not different kinds of IQs. That's just fucking flatly false. It's just completely wrong about that.
But how do you pick and choose what you believe and what you don't believe, and then form a basis? Like,
and also there's like there's this thing that is incredibly important. It's like this is kind of a developmental thing. the understanding of the G factor, we know that IQ is the best determinator. Well, yeah, the best determinator, or our best measure of somebody's intelligence, because it is exactly that. It is a measure. It is the best possible measure that we have right now. Now, so far as we're talking about the ontology of intelligence itself, there are multivariate manifestations of it, which means that there are multivariable factors to it. If we have different manifestations of different kinds of intelligence, and we're defining intelligence as the capacity to do something, the capacity for productivity, for function or purpose or a goal, related to a designated time and a designated speed. If we're defining intelligence to be that way, or the capacity to produce for a goal or something like that in a designated time and a designated speed, then there are multiple different kinds of intelligence, different manifestations of it, right? But we only have really one good measure, and that is an IQ test, which there are not multiple different kinds of, right? Because well, I mean, there are not multiple different kinds of IQ, right? Because IQ is referring to the G factor. It is referring to the intelligence, right? There are multiple different kind of IQ tests, but the IQ itself is not something that is changing. It is the object of the testing. Okay, so if you're testing for, let's say, Raven's matrices, okay, there may be different kinds of tests that use Raven's matrices. Okay, that doesn't mean the thing that is being tested by Raven's matrices is different in every single one of these tests. Okay, it's just a complete misapprehension of IQ and how IQ testing works. Now, as for intelligence itself, there are different theories as the possible embellishment and accentuation of intelligence in accordance with, obviously neuroplasticity is a big factor into making changes, into maximizing intelligence. Intelligence, I don't know the level of heredity, how hereditary it is. Majority hereditary, I think, what, 50 to 60%? Something like that. I don't know. Anyway, there's things like relational frame training, which is quite it's a new innovative approach to intelligence based on relational frame theory that essentially states that intelligence is basically the capacity that a human being has for relation. Relation manifested through language. So how much relation can a person's mind produce out of a certain set of syntax and semantics coupling? And so that's kind of like it's a very reductive relational frame theory, and I don't claim to have like an expertise in it or understand it fully myself, but that's what my general gathering of it. It's about relation being the foundation of intelligence. And then there's relational frame training that tries to take this theory and use it to increase the G factor. Not necessarily IQ, but the G factor. And the way that you can measure that would be through IQ. There's also things like dual and back, just like another form of intelligence training, or image streaming, and these are all like not highly tested, but again, it just goes to show that we really don't know that much about intelligence. However, we do measure intelligence. We can measure intelligence, okay? And the maximally productive way that we can measure intelligence, we can measure it and show you delineations and how practically it produces different manifestations based on a different score that you get on an IQ test, which is the best measure of intelligence. So IQ tests are very legitimate. There are not multiple different kinds of IQs. That's not a thing. So Nick doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about there. And yeah, there are different theories of intelligence that are necessary to understand whether IQ can be embellished and accentuated or not. And they're developing. So
I definitely believe that Black people are dumb, but I totally don't necessarily believe. I'm obviously being a little bit hyperbolic here. But I totally don't necessarily believe that Ashkenazis are the smartest. Like, how do you?
Well, I said they're probably among the smartest races. As to who's the smartest, it's tough to say. And I think that Jewish people do embellish that for obvious reasons. Now, there are some studies that say that Ashkenazi Jews do have the highest average IQ, and that does exist.
Yeah, but so then for me, the reason why I'm skeptical of it all, to be honest with you, is because I'm skeptical of history, full stop. Right? So when you're like, well, this is what we did.
What do you mean, all of history, or?
Well, skeptical of history full stop, because we're living in a present right now where they're lying about what happened yesterday. And then when I realized, like, when you completely remove something that would obviously inform our perspectives in a different way, as I covered on my show this week, like the Havara agreement between the Zionists and the Nazis, like that's kind of a pretty big thing to not teach people in school that would maybe inform and make us ask some questions. When you totally remove like a German genocide and only focus on one genocide, or don't focus on speaking about the Bolshevik Revolution, I don't question. I now have a lot of questions about history full stop. And so he who prints the textbook is king.
Agreed.
And so if you are coming up with a concept like, well, this is an immutable trait, and I know because I read or I learned this at school, or this textbook, or I read this book, he who prints the textbook is king. And I'm kind of learning that right now in terms of Hollywood Babylon, the relationship that the deep state has had with publishing agencies for a reason. You know this, I know this. You can't even get your book published.
Right.
If you want to get your book published because they're controlling the press, that's kind of been a running theme. Certainly was the reason why the Russian Tsar, they were pamphleteers at that time, but like certainly was the reason that he got overthrown, was that they realized the power of the press. And so when people have perspectives like you and they're base it on like historical knowledge, this person invented the wheel, I'm like, I don't really know what's up and what's down, to be honest with you. I don't even believe in the moon landing.
Tartaria.
So, there you go. There's another one. There's something there. That's very funny. That would.
Not kidding.
But the point being is that, yeah. So the more that I learn, the one thing that I learn is that we know very little. And so I would never make a sweeping conclusion like that confidently. It could be that some groups are more evil. They're willing to do stuff that you wouldn't do. They're willing to take your entire culture, your ideas, and purport that it was theirs. And that's something that we're kind of tackling in my book club right now, because we're realizing that the elites very much believed in this sort of Kabbalistic sexual ritual magic, but actually they stole it from Egyptians. And like Sigmund Freud was obsessed with the Egyptians, and we talked about Aleister Crowley. And so the more I learn about what they were obsessed with, I'm like, okay, so you're supposed to be like the brightest people in the world and you've had wealth forever. But I think you're willing to do more that most people that just have like a discerning, I don't know, just have the Holy Spirit, like, just wouldn't do. And so does the most evil person get to the top? And then they get to say, well, we're just like what's going to happen, for example, bring it back to what we've been discussing. And I will give a specific example. I won't even mince words here. It shocked me to learn that Armand Hammer, you know Armand Hammer, the actor?
Yeah.
He is racially Jewish. You know, sometimes it's race, sometimes it's ethnicity, sometimes it's religion, who knows? But Armie Hammer's family backstory is that his however many great grandfathers named Armand Hammer was named Arm and Hammer, literally, okay? Because he was considered Stalin and Vladimir Lenin's favorite Jew, okay? Fascinating. And so what he would do is he would go between Russia and America. He would set up like all of these. His father was Julius Hammer, and he established the Diamond District. So you're telling me that when Christians were being mass murdered and their belongings were being taken, you got these guys going back and forth, establishing districts in America. They're peddling art. He started peddling art. He started peddling diamonds. I think that's stolen. Okay. So if our American history is going to teach us that, like, oh, like the reason they established Armand Hammer's fortune is like they opened all these art galleries, it's stolen. You stole this from Christians that were being murdered and had all their stuff taken. We can apply that logic to what's happening in Palestine. Everyone thinks about, okay, it's very clearly what's happening is an ethnic cleansing. Where's all that stuff going? Are we going to in the future go, well, Palestinians just couldn't get ahead because, they're just not that smart. I fundamentally, if you look at the IQ of Palestinian, the reason why they got ahead is because they weren't that smart and the Israelis were just really smart, or no, the Israelis were just evil. And so I am not comfortable with the conclusion that you have arrived at, because I just pay attention to what's happening now and what limited research that I've done. I'm like, well, some people are just a little more evil. They'll rewrite the books, and 50, maybe 100 years from now, they're going to say the Palestinians never had that land. And it was really a matter of people lying, and it was anti-Semitic, and we'll be none the wiser.
Right.
Fair?
I disagree. I just fundamentally disagree. I think that, it's such a one-sided, it's unfortunate, but it's so one-sided, just a chronic lack of development and persistent underclass status and lack of contributions to mankind. I mean, certainly in the arts and in athletics, but no inventions, no philosophers, no true great masterpieces.
Yeah, but I mean, who is he talking about here? Is he talking about Africans? Is he talking about people that are? Is he talking about Middle Easterners? Because it's just with regards to Middle Easterners. I mean, because I am one. Okay, it's not Muzzy Cope. Okay, I was like, yeah, dude. There's like a ton of philosophers. All these countries, the countries that were attacked by, I mean, this is what talks about. The countries that Nick claims or attacked by the United States on behalf of Israel, they all were fucking prosperous before. And in accordance to the to the standard of industrialization in comparative to the time of that to their time, yeah, they were on par with literally all the other European and European countries in America. Iraq was fucking awesome under like for Arabs. I'm not saying for everybody, right? Because I mean it was a dictatorship, right? It was a dictatorship, but it was still like education was good, the economy was good, um, there was social cohesion, right? Um, so yeah, same thing with Iran. Same thing with I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that same proposition for other countries, but these are the countries of which I am certain. I mean, it's just true. It's just the case. And in subsects of areas, still now, there has been, despite sanctions, despite, heavy regulation, despite heavy, imperialism and shit like that, these countries are still, they're developing. They're doing good. I mean, the people there, just like anywhere else, they're going to universities, they're getting degrees, they're becoming productive members of society. They're, engaging with the economy and they're embellishing it and they're accentuating it. There's notable levels of social cohesion. Just like any society, there's obviously problems, but these are problems that are not proportionally disarrayed in comparison to any other, uh, I guess, white country, given the political and historical circumstances. So, this is an argument that you can make for, I don't know, Africa. Certainly, I mean, you can make this argument for sub-Saharan Africa. You can make it for, I don't know, some Middle Eastern countries, but it's just not really universal.
Anything like that in terms of fine art, really. And then you have the whole planet is like this. I mean, if half of Africa was super developed or halfway developed and the other half wasn't, maybe you'd have an argument. But it's whether they're socialist or capitalist, whether they got colonized or not, whether they got freed from slavery in 1800 or in 1860, or it's the same story everywhere. There's not one written language among them. You talk about who controls the printing press. They don't have books. They don't have words to put in the books. And I think that, it's a sad fact of the world, but it's something we have to deal with. And to me, that's the only conclusion that satisfies. And don't get me wrong, I get where you're coming from. I'm not, I'll give you an example. My family lived in Chicago for 4 or 5 generations. And my parents and my grandmother, they had a security firm in the city. They taught cops and security guards how to shoot their guns and gave them licenses and things like that. And almost all their clientele were black. And when I was growing up, this was impressed upon me at an early age. They always said the older generations in Chicago, when my grandmother was growing up in the projects, when my parents were running this business in the 80s and 90s, they said they were the most polite, the most pious, the most considerate. Right. Some of them couldn't read, though. They would come in and not be able to read, but they were less dysfunctional than my family. My grandmother, her mother had mental illness, and she would look outside the window in the projects and see a black family across the way, and they were sitting around the table holding hands saying grace, and it was an intact family. So I completely agree with you. So, obviously, there's a cultural destruction. Obviously, there's a cultural decline. But I think that was constant, even though the older generation was more genteel. I think that, honestly, that came from oppression. That came from a society where they were the minority. There was racism. There was abuse. There was segregation. And I think that made black people meek. And if you look, the out-of-wedlock birth rate started to blow up, not after Great Society in the late 60s, but in the 50s during the Civil Rights era. And I think that was sort of a regression to the mean moment. And again, I think that it's not that black people can't be good people. There aren't smart black people, or there aren't, incredible black people. I'm sitting across from one right now, or yay, and everything like that. But on the whole, on average, and there's billions of black people, they do have that lower level of development, and I think that's why they underperform. And
Yeah, I think it's totally ignorant. We can disagree on that, but I think it would be the same as saying, like, we look at women today who are all a bunch of hoes, and like that's kind of just become the thing. Like, this is what women are, and then kind of looking at this moment in time and saying, like, this is just who they are. It's like women.
I might do a full video going in on every factor of this, every analysis, and every I guess theory and argument that you can approach this question from. It's a very interesting thing. So
Women, as soon as they come of age, they just want to like be on screen shaking their butts because they're all low IQ and they need men to do this or whatever. It's like, no, the culture has been corroding for a very long time. And I don't accept the argument that it's because women are women and that's just who they all are deep down on the inside. I find that I do think that in time you might move away from that.
Okay. I'm
we'll
open-minded.
See.
Yeah.
We'll see. Okay. So you are a racist. You accept that. You are anti-Semitic. I don't like actually using that word because even that is what I mean, like trickery, where it's like Semitic. Palestinians are Semitic.
Right.
So it's nothing more anti-Semitic than blowing up Palestinians. Are you a Jew hater?
No, I don't hate anybody.
Do you hate Jews?
I don't hate Jews. I don't hate anybody.
You don't hate anybody? Okay. And your faith, you don't find that saying that you're a Catholic while also saying that you don't believe that whites and blacks should be married, or you don't believe in interracial marriage for whatever reason, that doesn't conflict with your Catholicism?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, but you said that like that's not a Catholic perspective.
It's not a sin. The Catholic Church doesn't say it's a sin to mix races, but there have been various Catholic authors that have said that it's not conducive to a long-term marriage to mix races because you have this clash, you have this dissonance between cultures, between different upbringings. And so they say if the selfless goal of a marriage is to rear children and you want to make that as conducive as possible, then you should marry within your race. It's not a sin if you don't.
Which Catholic author?
I don't know off the top of my head, but there are Catholic theologians that have said that. It's not conducive to a long-term marriage and stable.
Okay, jumping in here, even though he didn't say that he would produce a document, I thought it was important to fact check this one, obviously, because I don't want people to walk away with a perspective that it's a Catholic teaching or a Catholic idea or Catholic theology that people shouldn't be marrying outside of their race. So I gave him an opportunity.
He directly said that that's not like the Catholic normative idea. It's just... So it's like,
and told him it was important to me if he could supply us with the name or the reading. And this is what he came back with, that we were able...
What you said about Dave Smith and like, you said that I knew you, and it's like, why did you say that? You were talking shit.
To fact check as being an accurate quotation from Thomas Aquinas. The quotation reads, "It is less fitting to marry one who is far removed from us in customs and manners, lest the mutual fellowship be hindered." Doesn't say anything about race. I certainly don't disagree with that whatsoever. And so I am not clear on how that could be interpreted as being about race. But again, the only reason I wanted to fact check that is because it's really important for people who are obviously having faith-based.
No, the reason that you wanted to fact check that, the reason that she's so aggressive and hostile towards this kind of argumentation is because she's in a mixed race marriage, okay? With her political extremities, if she wasn't in a mixed race marriage, she really wouldn't be that hostile towards the idea of, Nick Fuentes saying that, hey, I believe that mixing race is not that good of a thing. Like, she wouldn't, but it's personal, so. And so she's kind of made this whole thing personal.
Discussions to know that that is not a Catholic perspective. All right, let's get back into the conversation.
And by the way, the statistics bear this out. There's more mental illness, more domestic abuse in mixed race households. It depends on which ones. Some are worse than others in terms of the statistics. But obviously, I mean, look, at the end of the day, elephant in the room is you're a black woman in a mixed marriage. So obviously we have different beliefs on this.
If we don't, I listen, I'm never going to obviously adopt your beliefs on it. I just think it's patently wrong.
But do you understand why I would want to have grandchildren that are white?
I don't have an issue with you saying you want your kids to look like you.
But do you understand why I would believe that or feel that way?
No, because I'm not white. I don't understand.
What about your grandchildren being black, for that matter, then?
Well, I'm mixed race, so that, I mean, I just feel like each kid comes out looking different. It's kind of incredible. So I think that when you actually have children, you realize like it's incredible how like my daughter is a little bit darker, but she looks like my husband. And then like my son's whiter, but he looks just like me. And I think that's kind of one of the exciting parts of being in a mixed race relationship. I'm always like, oh, I wonder what this kid's going to come out looking like. If you're saying that generations down, like 3 generations down, it'd be possible that you could just have all black kids or something. Would that bother you? You'll probably be dead. When that happens, you'll probably be dead.
I'm alive now, and
but I'm saying is that like by the time you could breed it out, so to speak, you'd be dead. So I'm just answering your question. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. Yeah. No, obviously not.
I'm saying, but do you understand why I would feel that way?
If I understood it, I wouldn't be in a mixed race relationship. So I don't understand it.
But you have no empathy then for like,
no,
you can't step outside of your situation.
I mean, no, I'm not. I don't need to have. How would I have empathy for it? I mean, I don't feel that way.
Okay.
So it's just something that we disagree on.
Well, I'm saying that because I actually can understand the appeal of a mixed race relationship. I get it. I mean, I find other races attractive also. And, if I was in love with a person from another race, I would probably want to build a life with them also. But my values are not just who I'm in love with and things like that. It's also my heritage, my identity, my race. And, I like the idea. It is important to me. My parents look a certain way. Their parents look a certain way. We come from a certain place. I like the unbroken chain. And I want my grandchildren and great-grandchildren to have a similar complexion. I want them to have similar hair. Because these kinds of things, they echo. We're all connected, not just in time horizontally, but vertically across the generations. And so the idea that, 2 or 3 generations down the line, one of my children bears no resemblance to me at all, it's almost as if we're not related. It's almost as if I never existed. And there's something very disturbing to me about that. And I can understand why people are okay with that. Because people have various feelings about race. They say, I don't care about my race or whatever, but I do.
Okay, that's totally fine. And like I said, it's not a Catholic doctrinal perspective.
Yeah.
It's your perspective. You're entitled to it. You can marry whoever you want. That's the point of free country. But would you make the argument that it should be legislative?
No, I don't think it should be legislated at all. Okay. No.
It's just your perspective. Yeah.
It's my value.
Listen, by the way, you're allowed to have a type. That's one of the things I think I don't personally care if people tell me I'm not attracted to black women, I'm not attracted to Spanish women, whatever it is. Do your thing. You know what I mean? That's the reason why you're allowed to be you and I'm allowed to be me. A question that I would ask you then is what is your dating life?
I don't have a dating life.
So you don't date?
No.
Do you have a perspective about who you want to marry? Do you intend to get married?
I do. I do intend to get married and have kids.
So where are you at on that?
I'm trying to get prepared for that mentally.
What does that mean? You're 26 years old.
I like my life. I like being single. I like being a guy. I like what I like. I like reading books. I like doing my show. I'm a pretty antisocial person. And it's a big adjustment for a man to go from having a life where you can do whatever you want, go wherever you want, unaccountable, everything like that, to then you have to be roommates with women and children. It's a totally different lifestyle. And for someone like myself, I'm a pretty eccentric and kind of out there person. I don't have a regular sleep schedule. I'm awake all night. I'm asleep all day. And my sleep schedule's moving around all the time. I like to go out on drives all the time. The idea of my wife sending me out the door, okay, be home by 10, call me and tell me where you're going. Or, I go on a trip. I got to get the car seats and buy all the plane tickets and stuff like that. It's kind of cramping my style. So I'm trying to get over that, I guess. But that's maturing.
Yeah, I think you should probably mature on that point. I mean, what?
Yeah, I know. You got to tell me. I know.
I want to go for drives. That would be something. I mean, if you are, do you attend the mass?
I do.
Do you go every Sunday?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so you're like a committed Catholic. Then obviously, the perspectives on family. I mean, I personally, and this would be me lecturing, but I just feel like you really have no idea who you are until you start a family. And whether that means just marriage, some people who are struggling to have children, okay, fine. But there's such a growth that happens because of that I think it informs your beliefs in so many ways. And I think that was a huge turning point for me. I wonder if I had been pressed with everything that happened last year, if I didn't have the unshaken faith and my family, what would I have done? And sometimes when I see the things that you say, I do think, okay, he doesn't take into account family. Like, it's just Nick. Nick is in his own world, which can be, I think, a quite selfish perspective, which is fine. That's what you're saying. You like being selfish is another way to say what you just said. I like being selfish and I don't want to give of myself to somebody else. But
well, I also think there's something selfless involved, which is to say, I could go and start a family and drag them into a world of mine, which is pretty chaotic. You know, I mean, is this really the kind of a lifestyle? If I'm banned on everything and I can't make a living, I'm banned from banking, I'm banned from credit card processing, I'm getting doxxed, people are showing up to my house trying to kill me, things like that. And what's more, I mean, let's also get, you know, I also don't appreciate the lecture. You don't know me, you know, so I know you're married, I know you're older than me, but you don't know me. You don't know my life. You don't know my situation. I don't think you're in a position to give me advice, especially as a woman, honestly. I don't think women, you know, this is something in the right wing. We say we're anti-feminist, and then women go around telling men what to do who are not their husbands. And, you know, I don't really buy into that ideologically, but that's besides the point. You know, my life has been tumultuous from the very beginning. From the time I turned 18, people were coming for my neck and trying to get me, and I was kicked out of college. And then, you know, once you're branded as an anti-Semite, before it became cool or popular, can't get a job, can't make a living, get banned from PayPal, all this kind of stuff. You know, that's a very difficult environment to try to have a dating life. You know, what do? I go out on Tinder, I go to a bar, and I say, hey, I'm a neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes that the ADL is writing articles about every day. I'm going to start a dating profile on Tinder. People are going to screenshot that, mess with me in all kinds of ways. It's a very difficult predicament, actually, for me, because I took on basically a huge sacrifice at the beginning. And I don't know that you really appreciate that enough. I think that you're somebody who, you know, you had a career in politics for as long as I was fighting a battle. You were at Daily Wire with a contract. You're at Turning Point. You're making good money. You're doing book deals. You're part of this thing that I'm criticizing and paying a very heavy price for at a time when no one's saying those things, when it's very unpopular. And it's not to say that I'm a victim, you know, because I did it willingly and I love it and I would do it again. But it is to say that, you know, you and I have lived very different lives. And, you know, it's easy, I think, for you to say you had your husband, have your kids, you got your ducks in a row, made quite a bit of money. Then you discovered the truth, and then you went out on a limb. And it's not to say you didn't make sacrifices and it wasn't a risk, and it paid off. You're doing great now, and I congratulate you. But with me, there was no calculation. I mean, I almost want to say I was 17. What's your excuse? I was 17, and I woke up, and I went balls to the wall, bucket of ice cold water, as you say. I made a lot of enemies, and maybe that wasn't wise. You know, but I told the truth and I took on extremely heavy cost for my personal life. It basically has made it so that I can't have a personal life. I don't even have many friends. Forget about, you know, dating women. I can't even really have a lot of male friends because there's such an incentive to betray me, to turn your back on me, because there are people that are being paid to attack me all the time on Twitter for information about me, things like that. So, you know, it's something like everything else that I'm figuring out one step at a time, just like my show. And, you know, when I get banned from something, you know, whether or not I'll be able to have a family and kids and what that'll look like. But I mean, it's a little more complicated, I think, than maybe you understand.
I feel like you just got super triggered by me just saying something so casual. What was that about?
See, I don't appreciate that.
You're like, you're a woman.
You're triggered. Yeah, it's funny that she fucking calls him triggered, where she literally, she centered and directed the entirety of this conversation, which was supposed to be about something like politics, topics, especially on Iran, and has to do with Israel and foreign policy, was like, you said this to me. Why did you say this about Dave Smith and saying that I'm scared of having you on shit like that? When she was absolutely abjectly wrong about so much of the shit. She's like, no, I'm not triggered. It's like, this is just projection. It's literally just projection and woman prattle. She is a fucking idiot. She is literally stupid. That's not to say Nick isn't stupid either, because I mean, he's philosophically illiterate. All these people are. All of them. All of your favorite political pundits, every single one of them are fucking stupid. Pretty much.
Man, just like I was just having a conversation with you, just being like, hey, like you
Just having a conversation with you. By the way, I'm gonna try to attack you on very minute details about some random clips that you sent online that I have emotional problems with. Also, why do you say that mixed race people shouldn't be? It's like, dude, you're the one triggered You're projecting, you stupid bitch.
There's a lot of growth that comes from when you start a family. Like that's it's a pretty cool thing to do. And I feel like you got pretty triggered there and got like a little
Yeah,
upset. I don't
yeah, you're getting triggered by me talking, and you're getting triggered by me being condescending. It's like I was not triggered to point out that it's like you're not in a position of authority to tell me what is good for me right now. It's like, dude, you've been triggered the entire 2 hours. The entirety of these 2 hours has just been you bitching and spurging and
know what I did there.
I don't like that you say triggered.
Well, you were a little bit
I'm
triggered.
being candid. I'm being candid with you. And
But saying,
well,
oh, a woman just should, it's like, okay.
you're talking about my personal life. You're talking about my personal
Yeah, we're
life.
having a conversation. I talk to tons of people about their personal lives. Like,
Well-
why do you feel like that wasn't a line of attack, Nick?
I know it wasn't a line of
So
attack.
why you kind of responded like you were just attacked?
the meta
Because you're
conversation again.
giving me
This is
this
literally what
lecture,
they do.
giving me
It's
this advice
insane.
about things and telling me, you don't know who you are and all this
No,
kind of stuff.
I said that when people start families,
Mhm.
it does commute your perspectives a lot. And sometimes when I see these clips of you floating
Commute?
around or
It commutes your perspective. Does she even know what the fucking words that she's using mean? Jesus Christ. Talk about IQ.
certain things that you do or say,
You said I'm selfish.
it does. Yeah, well, you
Yeah,
admitted you were selfish.
and I just don't really
You said I
appreciate
don't want
that.
to. What are you talking about? You just said that the reason that you didn't want to have a family when I asked the question or didn't start a family, you said was because I like to drive alone in my car. I don't
Spurging.
really want to have to come
Literal
home
spur.
and have to deal with
Man, being a
roommates, as you referred
36-year-old woman spurging like a fucking idiot. Jesus.
2 children and a wife. You want to stay selfish. You want to, you want to be in your
You want to stay selfish?
own world.
How's that even selfish? It's selfish if you never get married. If you're not married when you're 26, that's not you being selfish by any definition, by any criteria or standard. How is that fucking selfish? You know?
That's a fair assessment
I
of.
said that
No,
in
it's not. You
terms of
stupid.
my
Insane.
development, I'm trying to get over some of those
But
aspects
that is selfish,
of it.
right? I mean, is that fair assessment?
I think that's judgmental. I think that's a judgmental way to
selfish.
look
You
at
want to spend time with yourself. You don't want to invite people
It's
into your
selfish to want to spend time. She is actually just stupid. She is like 25 IQ. This is a stupid person.
space.
We're listening to a stupid person give an interview.
I think I used that word exactly as it should be
Okay,
used.
well, and I'm explaining why there's multiple aspects to it too. It's not just as
That's
simple
fine,
as that.
but acting like I tried to offend you when I just
I'm not
gave
saying
you
you
a
tried
word
to
to use. I definitely
Look.
did not try to offend you when I was asking you about family. You asked.
He should just tell her that she's spurging out. Like he needs to neutralize her because she needs to shut the fuck up. Jesus Christ, holy. She's like desperately trying to get the upper hand and trying to represent Nick as like emotional or like illogical because that's literally what she's been the entirety of the conversation.
People about themselves.
Okay.
That's for the same reason that I asked you about what you were
He's
up
okay.
to in high school and what your priorities were, what you were doing in college. It's because it's a natural point. You're 20.
Really, I don't know how much I don't regret watching this because I imagine it's like a very low amount that I don't regret. Low percent. There's a very low percentage of me that doesn't regret watching.
6 years old. People are going to ask you, okay, you have all these perspectives. You're saying people a very natural transition. You're talking about the fact that you don't believe people should interracially marry, correct?
Yeah.
She's spurging out because of that.
I think it's pretty fair to then move on to the discussion and ask you about marriage.
Dude, like this is the thing. Like people just it should be a necessity that in order for you to graduate from high school, you need to have some level of understanding of advanced logic. Like actually, you should be taught logic from elementary school on. Literally, it's not even a joke. I'm dead fucking serious. This is like the pivotal point of deviation from the intelligence and school systems worldwide and the education system worldwide and even in academia of people that portray themselves to be smart or are thought of by regular people to be smart. The logic needs to be taught. Like she's just like a very hard to listen to person just because of how stupid she is.
wasn't some like trap there.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's my issue with it. But I don't think I got triggered. I think I gave you a real response. So
You were like, listen, woman, don't ask me what I'm doing.
I didn't say listen. Look, I happen to believe that I
You're
don't
a
like
woman, which
women telling me what to do in general.
I didn't tell you what to do. I said that when you get married, you said you wanted to get married.
You said you're giving me a lecture. You said
Yeah,
you
I
go
said,
to
well, this may
church
sound
and
like a lecture
Okay.
because I'm sounding like an old timer here,
Mhm.
but I didn't tell you what to do. Like
Okay.
if you're giving a lecture on any topic, hey, this is what's great about marriage. I didn't say, Nick, you need to get married right
I
now.
just feel like it's pointed. I feel like a lot of these questions are pointed, but maybe that's just me and I'm imagining
Genuinely,
it.
you're imagining it.
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah, she said like this. Oh, so many women talk like this. This is just why women. I'm gonna hold my tongue. Hold my tongue. It's like somehow two stupid people, two incredibly idiotic people. And unsurprisingly, the bigger idiot is the woman. It's like I don't know.
anybody watching that is going to be like, that was a setup after he talked about interracial marriage for her to ask
It's
him
like,
his
what is this emphasis on this? What is this emphasis on this meta conversation? I think the fact that there is this great emphasis on a meta conversation is very indicative of the person's actual motivations to not have a conversation, because an interview is supposed to be an actual conversation. Presumably, if it's a political commentator that you're interviewing about the person's political views and their philosophical underpinnings for these views that they're having. Okay, but if you're just wanting to direct everything towards a meta conversation based on the response that you get from the other person as a response to your meta conversational attitude and your aggressive attitude and your condescending attitude, directive, it's like, it's not an interview. It is an ambush. You're just spurting out. You're having an autism attack. And that's it.
perspectives
And I'm
on
about
his
to.
own life
I
Yeah.
and
can't
what
believe
if
that
he's dating people. To be
we're
honest,
almost finished.
if you
Yeah.
want me to psychoanalyze that, I feel
Well, I don't, but feel
okay.
free.
Yeah, I feel free. Thanks. I feel like I do think you got a little bit triggered there, and I think that
I
at
think
towards
you got a little bit triggered there because I just know, I just feel it. It's like, dude,
the end of that triggering, you kind
at the end of that triggering, really, you stupid bitch? Like, you didn't cry about a fucking video clip for 2 hours? Like, you didn't cry, Nick, you know, calling you something? I don't even remember what it was. It was so insignificant and stupid, right? For 2 hours? 2 hours! You cried about it. That's not you being triggered? You having a meta conversation about something so small and about like, well, Nick, you'd be way better if you just talk to people in this way. It's like, yeah, that's not condescending, you stupid bitch. And if somebody responds to you in a condescending manner, to the very condescending kind of attitude that you're taking, then they're triggered. They're triggered because of the thing that you said, that it is the direct result of you being triggered. So stupid. This is why I hate meta conversations. And again, women tend to have meta conversations way more than men.
of got to the main
I wanna
gist that because of your life, it's difficult
just
for you to
shut
actually
the
establish
fuck
real
up.
world connections with
Mhm.
people.
What does that even mean? Real world connections with people? The- This is what happens when a philosophically illiterate dumbfuck retard is given validation by random anonymous people online that have certain political beliefs because they're also fucking retarded, and they coincide together, right? And the validation that she gets because she's espousing this more and more. She's becoming the poster gal for these ideas. It gives this person validation that they're not completely fucking stupid when she literally is. And it gives them this capacity to just, analyze things in whatever way they feel they want to, or they have an affinity towards analyzing something in the way that they have an affinity towards analyzing it in that way. It just gives them complete freedom, right? When their intelligence is given infinite validation by people. And so, no, you can't just psychoanalyze whatever the fuck you want. You can't just assume whatever the fuck you want. You can't just assert things. You can't just say things. Okay? And yeah, this is not an interview. This is literally not an interview. This is a debate. There's not been like there's been 2 questions right here that have been indicative of this being an interview, and every single other point in this 2-hour conversation has been her spurting out, her interrupting Nick constantly, incessantly, and just her having a meta conversation and interrupting it post editing, or post video, post conversational editing, to butt in, to add more into the conversation. This is Nick's interview, and she's spoken like 80% of the time. So it's insane.
Because there is the Nick Fuentes caricature, and there's probably a little bit of
Caricature.
pressure for you to maintain the Nick Fuentes caricature. I don't know that.
This is like this is like the when he was on, I don't know, Saucecast.
You feel
Same
that you
thing.
can have.
It's like, I just want somebody intelligent to have an interview with Nick. Somebody intelligent, just please. Like, if you want to have a debate, that's also fine. Somebody intelligent, actually entertaining, and not just this stupid meta conversation and psychological analysis.
Go out in the real world and have friends, and go out in the real world. And like you just said, I can't really get on Tinder and be like, I'm Nick Fuentes, have somebody screenshot it, and then it becomes a thing and people are making fun of you. Like, I think that's a real understandable answer, but I don't think you had to knife me to get to it.
I didn't knife you. Well, what did I knife you?
You were just like, we'll have to play it back. What did he say? Like, he was like, well, I don't appreciate a woman telling me, just like, dude, chill. It's a freaking conversation. Relax.
Yeah, it's a freaking conversation. Relax. A conversation. This is insane. This is gaslighting. This is literally gaslighting. This stupid bitch just the entire conversation, and Nick is too polite to tell her to shut the fuck up and shove her fake niceties up her ass.
Like, was not like demanding you go get married tomorrow. I'm just saying, I think if you get married, a lot of your perspectives are going to be a little bit different, especially having a kid.
I'm sure that's true.
A kid just completely changes the game again. It's like a whole nother level. And, family's good.
I don't think I got triggered, but
a little bit.
Maybe.
Okay, so any questions that you want to ask me, since you talk so much
in your interview? Hey, I know I'm interviewing you, but what are the questions that you want to ask me?
Crash, and you're finally face to face with Candace.
Oh, you're finally face to face. This is the thing. This is like this fake bravado of like, hey, I'm confronting you. This is not even an interview. It's like this fake bravado of you said you talked shit about me online, so you're face to face with me. It's like, yeah, the undertones of the attitude that you're taking is like literally logically necessarily follows that you're being a little triggered bitch. That's it. You're the one that is being triggered. That's the only reason she's talking this way. She doesn't talk to any of the other right-wing people that she has conversations with. She doesn't talk like this to Andrew Tate. She doesn't talk like this to fucking Dave Smith. She doesn't talk like this to literally anybody that is on the right wing that she interviews. And this is not even an interview. So
honestly,
I'm an open book, so you can ask me anything.
It was.
So I'm very uncomfortable with Nick sitting like that.
It is really cool meeting you because I've seen you around forever.
Oh, just stop.
And I am a fan.
Stop.
Believe it or not.
Is that you being a fan?
What a pussy. Nick's a fucking pussy. Jesus Christ. What a fucking pussy. It's like, I get it. He's like trying so hard. Rhetorical and optical thing, but you're just like, this is just you being a pussy. That's all it is. And so
these clips, is that
audience,
you being a
this is not rhetorically effective. This is not anything to her audience.
Fan?
I am,
No,
but but look, I have a lot of strong feelings. I'm very opinionated, but I think I give you your due as well. And if you watch all the clips, I do say a lot of nice things about you. So, no, but I really am. I think that you're tough. I think that you're real. I think that you're a little coy. You could be a little coy and you could be a little passive aggressive, but I kind of like that. I kind of like this when you were debating that Rabbi Barclay.
Why is he in his own interview, right, put in the position by Candace Owens, who's supposed to give him questions to answer about his upbringing and his political career? different political ideas that they're supposed to, have analysis about and look to Nick Fuentes for analysis about. Why has it become like this interrogation of Nick Fuentes for what he said about Candace Owens? Like, is she that fucking triggered by a couple of video clips and tweets that she just has to infest the entirety of this interview and this conversation with it? Because she's just so fucking ass pained about it. Her ego is so bruised. Her fucking idiot retard ego is bruised by it. It's insane. Honestly. It's crazy.
You kind of had this energy like, I'm going to talk to your manager. You kind of had this like,
I can be a Karen
you
sometimes.
kind of had this like, excuse me, I think I said the dressing on the side kind of like energy. So,
Fair.
So I live for that. That's why I'm a Candace.
That was the show that apparently you talked about me, where I think people started thinking that there was some coordination happening.
Mm-hmm.
And the clip was very funny, by the
Thank
way.
you. Yeah.
By the way, this is the same dumb bitch that defends Harvey Weinstein. It's like we're living in an insane world, right? Nick is being an idiot. He's being a complete pussy here. Yeah. It's just like complete sucking up.
I mean, look, I'm a little bit of a...
No, there's not even optics or rhetoric. I don't want any fucking retard characters talking about, well, this optics, boy, you retarded. Well, you're retarded sand N-word, sand N-word rhetoric. No, this is not that. It's like I'm getting down to where Nick even knows how to have a fucking debate. Jesus Christ.
Mixed bag. I hope you don't think I'm just heaping trash upon you.
I mean,
heaping dumpsters on you.
If you were, you're allowed to. It's a free country. I think people should.
Like, she turned this into a debate. Like, you don't go into a debate. Like, yeah, it's under the guise of an interview, but once you realize that you're being ambushed and the person is taking a combative tone, unmoderated debate against you on their own platform, and that gives them realm to shit on you to their own audience and satisfy their ego that was bruised by a couple of clips that you made about them, where you were under the impression that you were going to have a fruitful conversation and a discussion and an interview. Like, you're supposed to switch it up then. You're supposed to do a fucking debate. This is such like
stop
a conversation sucking up pussy shit, and she's just being this is the worst interview I've watched in my entire life. And it's not even I'm being completely serious in that. Okay? This is the worst interview I've ever watched in my life. Fucking sucks.
Being so fearful to have a disagreement. Like I said, I'm not afraid to sit down with somebody who says I'm a racist or I'm an anti-Semite or I'm this and that I truly do believe that the best idea wins. So I think people are going to listen to this and you're going to say, this is why I don't think people should interracially marry. And some people are going to agree with that and they have a right to marry who they want to. And I'm going to say I'm having the opposite experience and let people make up their minds. You're not pushing for legislation. You'd be an enemy of me if you were pushing for, miscegenation laws to be put back into place. But I don't really understand why they've kind of turned you into Lord Voldemort.
Yeah, I know. I mean, what do you think? Let me ask you a selfish question. What do you think about me? Meeting me, what's your impression? Do you think I'm an evil person or?
I don't think you're evil. I think you're asking me. So,
I am asking.
Okay.
That's all fair game.
If I was to just kind of analyze my own correspondence with you, I think that when you sense that somebody is potentially going to hurt you because you got so burned when you were 18 years old, you go on the attack.
What is this?
And
like, you have abandonment issues and you distance yourself from people out of fear that they're going to abandon. What the fuck is this bitch yapping about? Psychoanalysis is just so dumb.
Necessarily. I just think that is kind of your default position where it's like, well, I just got to say F you to this person and whatever.
This is not going to be complete spiritually if he doesn't call her a stupid bitch to her face, because she obviously is. Like, what? Like, I understand you're doing it in the interview. Why do you then go on your show and then call her a stupid bitch and say that she was being, aggressive? Why didn't you just say it? Like, just make your argument. Just be real here. Okay? People are not going to disagree with you. They can sense that she's being a fucking idiot the same way that I can sense it, right? There's no optics rhetoric thing here, okay? He's just being a pussy.
And that's why I go back to, if you wanted to come on the show, you could have just asked. Like, I don't respond to empty Groyper accounts. We had established communication over something legal. You should have been like, hey, Candace, I've been watching your stuff.
She is caught up on this way more than he ever has been. she's just so triggered by this. Like literally, she's brought it up times, 6 times for multiple different durations. One of which was an entire hour of this debate, an entire hour of an interview, not debate. This interview.
Like, it'd be cool if we could do a collab. And I would have been like, yeah, definitely. Let's do it. Or I would have said, oh, not right now. I need to wait until, but hit me back up or whatever. I think because you got kind of pigeonholed, which is necessarily happened because you got banned everywhere. Like, obviously, you're just going to be like in the pocket of cozy TV, and getting that feedback from other groypers. I don't know how cozy TV works. That sometimes you can internet a little too hard, and everybody's guilty of that. Like, you can be so entrenched in the comments that you kind of think that this is the perspective and this is why somebody's doing it. And I think that you assign evil sometimes where there really is just disagreement, and that you also feel like the world owes you something for being canceled first. I didn't do it to you. I had no idea it was done to you. While I was at the Daily Wire, I had no idea it was done to you. Truly, and I'm saying this, it was that conversation you had with Jeremy Boring that made me aware of your story, and I thought it was crappy. So I was being sincere when I said to Aiden Ross that he needs to decide what he wants to do now, because people didn't know. No one was trying to, like, they're just like, I don't know who Nick Fuentes is. Everybody says he's a white supremacist. Like, I'm not going to just suddenly pick up the phone and try to learn everything about this guy. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't impact my life. And I don't think the world owes you anything. It happened to you for a reason, and just, you got to just try to make the best of it, you know?
Yeah. No, and I agree. And I think that's a fair criticism in the sense that, at that time, a year ago, when you said, you weren't going to have me on for this or that reason, I'm being honest with you, I didn't believe you. And I'm, not to relitigate the whole thing, but that's why it made me so mad. I felt like you weren't being forthcoming. I felt like you were avoiding me and making excuses. And you're right. In my whole career, I've been doing this 8.5 years now or something like that. That has been the repeated default, is just getting stabbed in the back, getting thrown under the bus, people sneak dissing me, doing the bare minimum. Like Dave Smith, he did a show with me and then wouldn't call me Hitler. And then he's like, this guy, he felt like I owed him something. All I did was disagree with him. And he said, but I stuck up for this kid. It's like, well, you did a show with me and you didn't call me Hitler. I feel like you are entitled to honest and dignified treatment. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. But, as two people from different worlds, and our worlds are colliding, you from Daily Wire, me from the underground, from Cozy, we do have, I think, these misunderstandings and miscommunications, and it's good that, we could sit down and speak honestly about it and, be able to level with each other.
I think, and just in closing here, I want to challenge people that if you think somebody is the most evil person in the world, man, just have the conversation. Like, it's pretty simple to sit down and have a conversation, and not to.
Yeah, just have a conversation with the people that you're portraying to be evil, right? Just have an interview with them, like I did. If you really if you want to disseminate the idea that just have an interview with them like I did, where you interrogate them and you spurg about video clips and try to insinuate that they're a piece of shit and they suck, right? That is a very honest conversation where you just go, what a fucking clueless idiot.
Allow ourselves to think that people are irredeemable when you don't even know their backstories. So, lesson learned. I got to stop here because baby is hungry. So I'll stop there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right. Where is he? Bring him.
Not even a conclusion. Not even, hey, thanks for coming on. Not any of this. Like, not even an outro for the person, right? Yeah, she's just like a fucking idiot, spiteful, dumb bitch. That's it. Well, thank you guys for watching this. If you did, if you managed to bear through, Jesus Christ, thank you for watching. If you like my analysis, if you like the content, join the Discord server, the Omni Discord server. This is not usually the type of content that I make. I don't usually review debates, but I'm going to start doing that. I don't usually talk about politics. I talk about mainly philosophy. I talk about philosophy, the CTMU. And so if you're interested in that, if you're interested in philosophy, if you're interested in proofs for God and the CTMU, a theory of everything, you're interested in analysis of theories of everything and mathematical logic, metaphysics, ethics, epistemology, debates, shit like that, come over to the Omni Discord server and subscribe, will you? Okay? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.